A happy hour Friday starts now here on the Sports Bash Live on 97.3 ESPN, the free mobile app, live video streaming on the 97.3 ESPN YouTube channel. What's up, everybody? Hopefully you're enjoying the Friday afternoon. Couple hours together till 6. As we know, a happy hour Friday includes a Sal Pal Friday. Sal Paolantonio will hash up Eagles and Broncos with us coming up at 3 o'clock today. Also, Adam Caplan, football at 4. Casey Joyner, one thought every game. Busy Friday show as always. You out there. Oh, boy. I think, yesterday we talked a little bit about Marcus Hayes' piece in the Inquirer regarding what Doc Rivers had to say about Giannis Antetokounmpo and how he couldn't help but thinking that he was thinking about Ben Simmons when he made those comments. Well, yesterday during the Sixers game, I don't know how many people were paying attention, but there was another bit of information that came out from Rich Paul and his side of things, and this thing is just absolutely taking a turn. This is taking a turn that is basically going to continue to have people questioning and scratching their heads. Shams Charania over at The Athletic, he reported last night that Ben Simmons believes the Sixers' tactics are worsening his mental health instead of supporting him and want to deem him mentally fit in order to force him to play. There's a lot of quotes in this from Rich Paul, his agent from Clutch Sports, in response, and responses from the Sixers side of things. Rich Paul, in a quote, said, "I truly believe the fines, the targeting, the negative publicity shined on the issue. That's very unnecessary, and it has furthered the mental health issues for Ben. Either you help Ben or come out and say he's lying. Which one is it?" Now, the Sixers fired back in response in the article by saying they made it clear that they have been very supportive of Ben Simmons and have worked to provide him with all the possible resources, and the team expects Simmons to ramp up play unless given information otherwise from his mental health professionals or Simmons himself that they have not gotten. Here's where this thing gets really wonky and takes a really odd turn. This is Rich Paul's first time really saying, hey, my client has mental health issues. In the past, it has been he is not mentally prepared to play. Those are two different things. If you are saying my client is not mentally prepared to play, hey, that's just like saying, you know what, boss? You know what? I just don't feel like getting out of bed today, and I'm not making it. Do what you need to do. If I called my boss and said, hey, you know what, I just don't feel like coming to work today, how do you think that's going to go? Now, I would hope, and I don't know this because thankfully I don't have mental health issues at this moment in my life. Who knows if they could ever come. But if I said, hey, I am really dealing with some mental health situations, I would hope they would say, take whatever time you need. Rich Paul, his agent, for the first time, essentially came out and now has pitted, hey, they don't want to help Ben. They want to say he's lying. He essentially backed himself in a corner, if you ask me. Rich Paul has been so, if you're trying to do something, you got to clean up your steps, right? You got to hide. If you're trying to put together like in a murder mystery, you can't leave out some of the evidence to lead you to the murder. Rich Paul has been so horrible at this. Rich Paul is not a skilled agent. He is a guy who has a cocky attitude because he has LeBron James. He thinks his bleep don't stink, and Rich Paul's a clown show. Rich Paul has no idea how to handle something of this magnitude. Rich Paul is not an agent. Rich Paul is a guy who thinks he's bigger than he is. He has LeBron James, and he makes a lot more money than all of us out there, which, yes, in that case, he is bigger than he is. But the steps that he has missed representing his client are so amateur that Rich Paul has no business. He is so in over his skis in this situation. Rich Paul essentially is trying to come out and say that the team is not giving Ben the help that he needs. The team offered Ben help. Ben chose to go in another direction. So, Rich Paul, this is where you're in over your skis, pal. When you're trying to not play your hand, you don't come right out and play your hand. And by coming out and suggesting, like, do you feel good, Rich Paul? Do you feel that you're doing a good job as an agent, that two of your clients, two of them, very high-profile players, both NBA All-Stars, Rich Paul, do you feel you're doing a good job that two of your players are basically being asked by the team to not play for them, and you want one of them, as you admit it yesterday? Well, my other client's getting paid, and they're not even asking him to play. You've played your hand there, Rich Paul. You have now come out and said what this is all about. Sorry, dude. You're an amateur. Rich Paul is an amateur. You're the CEO of Clutch Sports. Well, guess what? Sometimes you just step in a pile of poop. Rich Paul, you've done it. Congratulations. You've made money in this world. You've somehow got to where you are, but you are an amateur. I'm sorry that these other clown shows have succumbed and acquiesced to your clown show. Who would sit there and say, Rich Paul, standing in front of them, I would basically be like, buddy, why don't you go get somebody else to come negotiate this contract, because we ain't dealing with you. And let's see how John Wall and Ben Simmons and the rest of the client list of Rich Paul like sitting on the sideline, not getting paid to perform. Hey, look, if Ben Simmons comes out and said, and I said this before, if he has mental health situation, here's the problem. We all thought Ben Simmons had mental health situation. Ben Simmons refused to admit that. He tried to dance around it in every other possible way because his clown show agent doesn't know how to handle something like this. Rich Paul is a complete jackass. Rich Paul is a complete amateur because he had no idea how to handle this situation. No clue. He has no clue how to handle this situation. He has bungled it for Ben Simmons so poorly that now Ben Simmons should be looking at Rich Paul and say, dude, you've screwed me. If I'm Ben Simmons and I've lost all this money, I'm asking Rich Paul for the rebate. Because Rich Paul, Ben Simmons' agent, is the reason Ben Simmons ain't getting paid. So now Rich Paul's got to stick his tail between his legs and speak out of both sides of his mouth yesterday. Literally, he's talking out of both sides of his mouth at the same time. Well, the Rockets, they told John Wall he doesn't have to play, and they're going to pay him. Guess what? Jimmy Lynam said it last night, and when he said it, I said it in unison with him. You ain't the Rockets, buddy. John Wall, by the way, overrated. Told you this before. He's sitting on the sidelines, completely healthy, ready to play, and the Rockets don't want to play him. So Rich Paul is saying, well, they're paying him not to play. You've already played your hand now, buddy. You have played your hand on who you are. Rich Paul, you are a clown show. You are a clown show, Rich Paul. For you to say that last night, you have made your client. Look, I get it. There's a lot of people who don't like Ben Simmons. But you have made Ben Simmons look so bad. So bad. And guess what? If I'm Ben Simmons at this point, I would be infuriated if Rich Paul was representing me the way he is right now. Absolutely infuriated. There is no possible way. If this guy was representing me, I would allow him to get away with what he did last night. He has essentially tarnished his client so bad. Now, the Sixers, it's almost as if the Sixers have that look on their face like, wait a second, where did this all come from? A couple of days ago, like the Sixers, I think, have been very patient and understanding in this clown show situation. I mean, can you imagine the Philadelphia 76ers, look, a franchise who's not perfect. They make a lot of mistakes, and they have a lot of egg on their face at times with some of the way they handle things, among other teams in the town. It's not just the Sixers who make mistakes. Everybody has issues and does things wrong. No one's 100% right all the time. Can you imagine, though? You're the Philadelphia 76ers or any NBA team. Take the Sixers out of it. And the guy you have to deal with is Rich Paul. Seriously. How and when did people in this league allow him to get to the status that he has achieved? I'll give him credit for that. But holy mackerel, is this guy an amateur? This Rich Paul, seriously, I don't know this. Does he have a law degree to be able to be an agent? Like, you don't have to have a law degree to be an actual agent, I don't think. But what is his background? Because obviously he cannot have a law background.
His background goes back to when LeBron was coming out of high school.
He's like LeBron's buddy, isn't he? Like, isn't that?
Well, there were 4 of them that worked together from when LeBron was a teenager. It's his inner circle, and Rich Paul is part of it.
Mm-hmm.
And what happened is when LeBron first got hooked up with Nike, part of the deal is that Rich Paul worked with Nike out of high school. So he learned marketing and PR and all under the Nike banner. Then later he left Nike to start Clutch Sports with LeBron.
Hey, guess what? By the way, for all of the work that he has done to build his own brand, total credit there. But being a marketing guy and being able to be a marketing and PR guy and handling things of this magnitude, not in the same boat, buddy.
Well, that's the other thing. And that is, so he was not initially an agent. He had to.
Well, that's obvious.
He had to go and get the accredited certification to be an agent. Because in order for you to be an agent with any league, you have to go through certain criteria with the league and the Players Association. Because originally, LeBron was represented by somebody completely else, who represented him from high school to, I think it was about 20, I think it was right before the Miami Heat deal. And that's when Paul started picking up this whole, hey, Clutch Sports is going to represent athletes, right? So that's where John Wall came in, and that's where these other guys have come in over the years.
I know LeBron. I know Maxey is one of his guys, too.
Maxey's one of his guys, too. Anthony Davis, he's another guy.
Another guy who's been
high
bungled.
Profile.
Right? That situation was completely bungled in New Orleans.
I know that not directly, but Clutch Sports has represented Dwayne Wade on different business matters, because they don't just represent athletes in terms of contract, they also represent them in terms of marketing deals.
Mm-hmm.
So like Dwayne Wade has one guy for like his contracts, but Clutch Sports has handled some of his business operations, like that show that he's doing now.
Right. So he has, let's see, John Wall, LeBron James, Anthony Davis, Ben Simmons, Draymond Green, Zach LaVine, Lonzo Ball, Eric Bledsoe, Gary Trent Jr., Murray, Contavious Caldwell-Pope, Terrence Ross, Jordan Clarkson, Nurkic. So he's got some high-profile guys on this list.
Yeah, the famous KCP, where they told the Lakers, if you give KCP a contract, we'll bring LeBron, basically.
Mm-hmm. Well, I'll tell you what. Look, after watching this all unfold last night and reading this article and like going through some of the quotes here, in this case, we have to get Ben help and not put finances above mental health, Paul said. As an agent, I understand contractual obligations and hold myself accountable in this business. But if someone is telling you something, you can no longer turn a blind eye in today's world. This is no longer about a trade. This is about finding a place where we can help Ben get back to his mental strength and get back on the floor. I want him on the floor playing the game that he loves. I want Ben on the floor, whether it's in a 76ers uniform or another uniform. That's not up to me, but I want him in a state where he can resume play. We want to cooperate, and we want to work him back on the floor. Guess what, Rich Paul? You're saying this in November. Where was that comment?
In July.
In July. Where was the comment before the season started that we want him on the floor? He's having some mental health problems. That wasn't what you were projecting. First, you were saying his backer. First, you wanted him to be, he wanted to be traded. He didn't want to play him. Then his backer. Well, then he wasn't mentally ready to play. And now you're saying he has mental health issues. Well, not being mentally ready to play and having mental health issues are two totally different things. That's number one. Number two, where was Rich Paul saying this in July and August and September? Fine. You didn't say it in July. You want to be traded. You didn't want to play your hand. Why I want to be traded? That's my own thing. I want to be traded. They don't want to trade you. Okay, August. Rich Paul comes out in August and says, look, Ben is dealing with a lot of mental health situations right now. We are trying to have him talk to some people. He is just not ready to play NBA basketball. That's not how it was portrayed.
No, it wasn't. It was portrayed as Ben doesn't want to be here. Ben will go. Remember the phrase was anywhere in the NBA. He's willing to play anywhere, right? That was the whole point originally. And remember when the Sixers flew out to Ben's house to talk to Ben and Rich Paul in August? Now this was brought up. No, it was, well, we don't want to play. And remember what Doc Rivers said, according to the report? Well, we're paying you to play basketball.
Mm-hmm.
Like the whole point of all this has been the Sixers have had a position where they have said, you are being paid to do a job. And until you give us some specific reasons why you can't do said job, we expect you to fulfill your obligations. And part of those obligations are, if you're going to be here, you're going to be involved.
Mike, you're hating on Rich Paul for being successful. No, not at all. I actually congratulated him for being successful. I gave him a lot of credit for working his way to where he is right now. I didn't hate on him for being successful at all. What I did say is if he represented me the way he's representing Ben Simmons right now, I would not be happy. And to say that he represents Ben Simmons and Ben Simmons, Rich Paul doesn't control Ben Simmons. Look, we know in many of these instances, the agent has an agenda.
Always.
The agent has an agenda. You know what the agent's agenda is there, you clown?
Make money.
Is that he doesn't get paid. If his client's not getting paid, then he don't get paid. Yep. So guess what Rich Paul needs to do? He needs to get his client paid. He needs to get his client paid. I didn't hate on Rich Paul for being successful. In fact, I gave him credit for getting to this point. Rich Paul has done a great job building a marketing, PR, clutch sports, and what he does. But as an agent representing his player right now in this situation, John Wall's not on the court. Why? Why isn't John Wall playing? That's two of his highest profile guys. Anthony Davis last year in New Orleans, 2 years ago. What a clown show that was. That was handled so poorly. Now, he ended up getting his wish, different situation. Anthony Davis on a 1-year deal. He didn't want to play the last year of his deal in New Orleans. He got out of there. Ben Simmons has 4 years left. This isn't hating on Rich Paul for being successful. If you had half a brain and listened to what I said, I gave him credit for being successful. I actually gave him a ton of credit for being successful. Rich Paul has done an amazing job getting to this point, but he ain't an agent. He can portray that he's an agent. He can have the paperwork. That's like my buddy who signs up online and marries you. He has a certificate that says he can marry you.
Right.
But Rich Paul, he ain't an agent. He's not an agent. He's doing exactly what Simmons wants.
See, what I would ask Rich Paul is, what have you done to help Ben Simmons?
That's my point. What have you done to help Ben Simmons? All you've done is hurt Ben Simmons. How? Because he talks out of both sides.
He talks out of both sides. Him.
He has made his client look like the right hand's not talking to the left hand. He's making it look. You could say that Ben Simmons tells the agent what to do. Well, if that's the case, well, then you're the agent. You need to sell your client. Hey, look, you're making me go to the media. You're making me tell Shams this stuff. You know what makes us look ridiculous, right? That's his job as the agent. His job as the agent to make sure that his client doesn't look the way his client looks right now. So as an agent, he's doing an awful job because right now people are looking at Ben Simmons and saying, this guy is lying. He's making stuff up. And I haven't even said that. I'm not saying Ben Simmons is lying. I actually think Ben Simmons has mental health issues. The problem is Rich Paul didn't tell his client, hey, you need to say this from Jump Street.
Right.
You can't say this in November. You know what it's going to look like if you say this in November? That's on the agent. The agent has to advise. Agent advises his client. His client says, hey, I'm not mentally ready to play in Philadelphia. I can't face those fans again. All right, then you need to tell them that. I'll tell them for you. I'll put together the message, but you need to say that now. You can't say that in November. And I think Ben Simmons is telling the truth. What other answer is there? There's only one answer why Ben Simmons played as poorly as he did in those playoffs. He has mental health issues. Every single person listening say he's got mental problems. He just didn't want to say it. He just didn't want to admit it. And his agent enabled him. His agent enabled him to basically not put the right message out there. And now it's gotten to this point where his agent has to try to clean up the mess, and he's made the mess worse. This thing, what he said last night, look, he drew a contrast between John Wall, who was being paid by Houston to sit out. This is where Paul completely is a fraud. To bring up John Wall's situation, he said, quote, John is able to play, but Houston is okay using the CBA to pay him not to play. So which way is it? John is perfectly healthy and ready to play, and it's okay in the CBA. We are being professional with both instances, but how can it go both ways? John and the Rockets have been professional about their situation, and we are expecting the same with the Sixers.
Mike, it gets back to what I said months ago. I said two things, and I have not changed on my opinion on this. The day after Game 7, I said that Ben Simmons needed help. I said on the air, you heard me say it multiple times, Ben needs to see a shrink, a doctor, a pastor. He needs to find a Bible. He needs to find something. He needs help. And the second thing was I said, Ben Simmons is getting bad advice. There's nothing about that opinion that has changed in the last few months. Ben is constantly getting bad advice from his agent, Rich Paul. And Rich Paul is misrepresenting him the entire time.
It's ironic that he pulls these quotes on a night that the guy who's replacing Ben Simmons is putting 33 on the board.
His client, by the way. Yeah.
To me, Rich Paul has completely bungled this for many reasons, but bringing the John Wall situation into play completely shows what he's out for here. He wants Ben Simmons to get paid so that he can collect his money.
Sure.
If
absolutely.
Ben Simmons ain't getting paid, Rich Paul ain't getting paid. Yep. So guess what? Rich Paul is now basically throwing the life raft into the ocean here and saying, I got to try whatever I can. So I'm going to bring John Wall's situation into this. Guess what? The Sixers ain't the Rockets, buddy. You should be smart enough to understand how different these situations are. And you should be smart enough to understand, Rich Paul, you're a great agent, apparently. You're a smart guy, apparently. You should be smart enough to understand that you, not the Sixers, you and your client waited until November to essentially say what we all knew. Well, what I had already believed, that your client has mental health issues. And that's not a bad thing. That's not a ha, we told you so. That's go get this kid help.
And stop using money in contracts as a coverall.
If he would have said this in August, Ben has mental health issues. We're getting help. The Sixers are aware. They're working with us. The Sixers have already said, we're working with Ben. And then Ben didn't want the Sixers doctor's help. Right. Fine.
He went somewhere
else. Fine. That's more than well. I have no problem with Ben saying, I want to go talk to my own people.
But come out in front.
The Sixers have tried to give you help. You told him what was going on, and the Sixers said, we'd like you to talk to somebody. He said, no, I want to talk to my own person. Ben Simmons and his team, Rich Paul, have dug the hole deeper.
Yep.
Now, again, it goes back to, I don't think Ben Simmons is a liar. I don't think Ben Simmons is making this up. I think he's embarrassed by it. That's the problem. I think Ben Simmons is embarrassed that it's gotten to this point. And guess what? He should be embarrassed. Not by the fact that he has mental health issues, by the fact that his client, his agent, has treated this thing like a complete disaster. That's what Ben Simmons should be embarrassed about. Happy Hour Friday, my friends. Sports Bash Live brought to you by Matt Blatt Kia. They want to get you approved today. Matt Blatt, 6211 Black Horse Pike, Egg Harbor Township. Hey, look, a lot of people could say you control the agent. The agent is there to advise you. You could say, this is what I want. And the agent would say to you, wow, you can't go that route, Ben. You can't go that route. It's the agent's job to advise him the best way to approach this. And Rich Paul failed his client by not coming clean with the facts way back in the beginning. Rich Paul's job was to say Ben Simmons has mental health issues in July, August, even if he waited to frickin' September. That's on Rich Paul. Ben Simmons might have said to Rich Paul, hey, listen, man, I can't go back there. I'm having some mental problems. I got to talk to someone about this. It becomes Rich Paul who then has to say, I'm going to get that message out there for you. Because you don't expect Ben Simmons to go out there and say, hey, this is what's going on. He has someone who he pays to do that. And guess what? That guy's not getting paid right now. You know why? Because Ben Simmons ain't getting paid. Sports Bash Live, 97.3 ESPN. Mike McGarry at 240, 99 bottles. We'll register some more people. Sal Paolantonio, Paul Hudrick. Don't go away. 232 Sports Bash 97.3 ESPN. Text messages are coming in. 609-403-0973. 609-403-0973 on the text board. Message me through the free mobile app on the phone. And if you're watching the show live on the YouTube channel, you can get us over there as well. Got a couple of YouTube messages coming in. Jalen is watching the show on YouTube. He says, Ben has come out of this looking 1,000 times worse. I agree, unfortunately. And like, I'm not questioning Ben. There are people out there who have questioned whether he's lying or making this up so you can get money. I don't think he's lying. I think he definitely has mental health issues. I think that's the one thing that we can say is evident, is that looking at those playoff games in that series, that's the one thing I think is being truthful here, is that Rich Paul's client, Ben Simmons, has some mental health issues. He needs to talk to somebody. I don't have any questions about that. The way it's been handled is making people have questions about it. But I don't question Ben whether the validity of this or not. I've never been that guy. Ben Simmons says he has mental health issues. I don't think he's lying. I think it's the one thing that makes sense in this whole thing. It's the one thing that makes sense, is that Ben Simmons has something going on. Jonathan L. is watching on YouTube. He says, Ben Simmons has been sick for a while. I get it. I've been there. I had to drop school and work a few moments in my life. Not once did I factor how much money I had because I was losing it. I needed to get away, so I did. Eventually, I started working again, made more than I did the previous years. It's sad because Rich Paul made this about money, not about Ben's mental health. The more people discuss the money, the less it is about mental health. Jonathan L., thanks for sharing, number one. Number two, I agree with what you're saying. I think Ben Simmons is saying, I'm having mental problems. Rich Paul don't want to hear it. Rich Paul wants to hear, I need you to get me some money, my man. I got this text message here that is an interesting text. He says, Mike, wow, the hate for Rich Paul is real. Mike, Ben wants out of Philly, and he will get out. AD wanted to be in L.A., and guess where he's at? L.A. And Rich Paul is going to get Ben out of Philly with 4 years left on his contract. That's unheard of. So to me, he's no dummy. Possible. We'll see. Right now, he's got two clients sitting out, not playing. Now, AD, he got him out to L.A. This is a different situation, text message guy. AD had 1 year left on his deal. Much easier to say, I want to go to L.A. All right, I'll get you to L.A. He still got stuck playing in New Orleans for half that year. But with 1 year on the deal, much more attainable. Way different story with 4 years left on the deal. Way different story. And if he gets out of here with 4 years left, I'll go back to this text message and say, hey, he got him out. If he's playing in Cleveland or Minnesota or San Antonio, that's not where Ben wants to go. Sorry to tell you. 609-403-0973. Mike, what if Ben Simmons doesn't listen to his agent? What's Rich Paul supposed to do? At that point, you don't go to Shams. That's what he's supposed to do. Don't go to Shams. Right? If Ben Simmons doesn't listen to his agent, what's he supposed to do, Rich Paul? Don't go to Shams and start saying stuff like this to make your client look terrible. Jason and Kate May. Mike, I just want to say I 100% agree with everything you just said. It's a shame it's come to this, but it's the reality. Appreciate it, Jason. And I'm not asking people to agree or disagree with me. Rick at Ocean City. Mike, this is Ben's way back. He comes out. He says he's mishandled this entire situation, was given bad advice by his agent. He publicly fires said agent and apologizes to the Sixers organization, the fans, the city of Philadelphia. Then he goes full Jimmy Chitwood and says, I don't know if it will make a difference, but it's about time I start playing ball. Well, that's a really well-written story there. I like that, and that might be a good way to get him back. But I think somewhere both these guys, look, I'm not absolving Ben Simmons of wrongdoing here. But if you don't think the agent has as much, if not more, say, you need to get out of the fantasy world you're living in, buddy. I'm sorry that you think that Ben Simmons has got this spell over his agent. No. That's not how this works. Rich Paul's the agent. Ben Simmons wants to keep having him representing him, he listens to the agent. Ben Simmons doesn't have the backbone to go to Rich Paul and tell him, yo, this is the way it's going to be. And most people don't. You could say, well, that's Ben Simmons' fault. If you don't understand that that's the way this worked, that's a you problem. Ben Simmons is getting bad advice. He's getting bad advice by a guy who's not qualified for the job. He might be qualified to build a marketing PR empire. Great. He might be qualified to go in because he has no dignity and negotiate with these teams. Fine. He's got some wins, and I'll give him all the credit in the world. It's easy to represent LeBron James. Guess what? LeBron James don't need Rich Paul. I got news for you. I think LeBron James can go in and negotiate an NBA contract without Rich frickin' Paul. Okay? I think LeBron James' career will go on without Rich Paul. Rich Paul is doing dirty Ben Simmons, and guess what? He's got another star player, John Wall, just collecting dust. Are you proud of the guys you're representing collecting dust on the sidelines? Because this is where it's gotten to. Mike McGarry's on the other side. What's his opinion? I'll get that coming up next. All right, 3:44 to Friday. It's the Sports Bash 97.3. Mike McGarry's here. He's brought to you by Calvi Electric, now offering residential services for your home and business online, calvielectric.com. Mike McGarry from the Press of Atlantic City stops by every Monday, Wednesday, Friday as we take a look at what's going on. And what's going on right now, Mike McGarry, is that Ben Simmons' agent last night, I don't know, whose side would you take here? Who's at fault in this one? The latest as the Ben Simmons saga turns. Who are you pointing at the finger at today?
I don't know if you turn a finger at anybody. To me, it's just a lot of white noise at this point, meaningless white noise. It's obviously that Simmons and his camp is doing everything in their power not to play for the 76ers. I don't know. It's interesting, and no reporting on this, just speculation on my part. But I wonder if the 76ers are being so tough with Simmons just because, for the greater good of the league. Simmons has 4 years left on his contract. You can't have guys who, it's one thing for guys to want to opt out or force their way out of town if they have a year left. I mean, Anthony Davis, I think, had a year and a half left when he forced his way out of New Orleans. I mean, here's a guy with 4 years on his contract trying to force his way out of town. That would basically make contracts meaningless almost. So I wonder if the Sixers, again, no reporting on my part, but just speculation. Are they playing hardball for the benefit of the NBA? Are they, in essence, taking one for the team, basically?
Well, what is Rich Paul's message last night? To me, I mean, I think Rich Paul's in over his skis with what he said last night. I mean, he's essentially last night saying, well, Ben Simmons has mental health issues, and the team is not basically like, are you calling him a liar? Then he's trying to compare it to the John Wall situation. Like, to me, he plays his hand that this is about money.
Yeah, I think it's just about getting Ben Simmons out of town without him getting fined, game checks for missing games. And I thought last night his sort of statement that, okay, now the Sixers, by inquiring about Ben Simmons' mental health, are in essence making his mental health worse by asking what's going on. The Sixers, from the quotes in the story, seem to be saying, hey, we don't want to force him to come back and play. We would just like to know where he stands, basically. And to me is not unreasonable. But the whole thing that I look at it, and you get back to what actually happened on the court last night, the Sixers, without Ben Simmons, they have a problem scoring in the fourth quarter of some basketball games. With Ben Simmons, they have a problem scoring in the fourth quarter of some basketball games. That problem has to be solved, and it has to be solved soon. And obviously, the only in-season remedy that I say is some sort of trade involving Simmons and maybe some guys on the roster who are playing well right now to create a situation where they can have better possessions and get at least a perimeter creator in the fourth quarter of these games, because that's a big issue right now. As I wrote the other day, the Sixers are entertaining. They are fun to watch. Love Maxey. Love how hard they play. Love how much heart they show. But they're 8-5 and they've lost 3 in a row, and that's a problem.
A lot of this is, conjecture from his side. Don't you think, Mike, if this is the way they played this from Jump Street, this would be different? If he said, look, Ben Simmons has some mental health issues. He needs to get some help. We recognize that. That's why he's not going to be ready to play at the start of the season.
Well, it could have been different, but the fact that they played that card so late sort of cast, an air of uncertainty. I learned a long time ago never to question anybody's physical or mental injuries, but the fact that this wasn't an issue, the fact that they asked for a trade, a week after the Atlanta series ended at the combine or the pre-draft workouts in Chicago, you kind of can't help but wonder, is everything they're doing measured to sort of get him out of town? What they are doing, and it's clear it's a strategy from him showing up out of the blue, from him holding out. They are trying to make life as difficult as possible for the 76ers, almost make Simmons such a pain that the 76ers break down and say, okay, just get him out of here. And it's also apparent that the 76ers are not going to do that.
Right. Now, the thing that is interesting in this last night is that he says, or Shams reported anyway, that if Simmons got traded, he wouldn't be ready to play. Like, they make sure that they threw that into this, like, hey, because some people have suggested, hey, if you trade him to the Lakers, he's going to get traded there, and then he'll be on the court the next day, because I don't question whether Simmons is having these issues. I think that's the only thing to me that's real is that Ben Simmons has mental health issues. I think that's the one thing that I firmly believe. I believe that after the Hawks series. Like, it didn't take Rich Paul telling me last night that Ben Simmons is having mental health issues. That was clear in the Atlanta series. The fact that he waited this long, and then he throws in there, well, he's not ready to play no matter where he goes. I think that's just another part of the shell game here.
Well, I think he's trying to, a lot of this is trying to win the battle of public relations, right? Win the media wars, basically. I'm sure we'll have a story in the next couple of days from the Sixers camp or the Joel Embiid camp when he comes back, giving his take on the situation. Yeah, I think by saying he's not ready to play, you're kind of trying to knock down that cynical angle of people that say, well, if he gets traded Friday, he'll be ready to suit up on Sunday. It'll be interesting to see, however, how long after, if and when he's traded, how long it takes for him to get back on the court, basically.
Right. Now, I mean, I don't know. Do you think the Sixers have handled this poorly, or do you feel like they have done their best to try to work with the Simmons story? Whatever story they're getting, have they tried to work with that story, or are they poking the bear?
I don't think they're poking the bear. I kind of think, I wonder why they're going to this, why they're going to the extremes of finding him, this and that, almost trying to force him to play for them, where in my worldview, again, as I said a second ago, they've got a problem with Ben Simmons or without Ben Simmons that they have to solve. To me, Ben Simmons is not going to solve that problem by coming back to the team. So I think you take a lot of drama. You take what happened last night out of the element if you just say to Ben Simmons, look, go home, sit there, we'll pay you, but and we'll let you know when we trade you. And that trade might be 2 days from now, 2 weeks, it might be 2 months. It's going to be a deal that benefits us. If you did that, then you're taking away this drama of what happens last night, or you're taking away, I've been up at Wells Fargo a couple of games this season, and in every pregame session with Rivers, somebody asks about Simmons. Well, if you send Simmons home and say, we're sending him home until we trade him, okay, then all that's off the table. All that distraction, all that drama, all that nonsense is gone, and you can take a step towards solving the basketball problem that you have that Ben Simmons doesn't solve.
Hey, do you think what they said last night, mental health issues, is different from the message they were trying to portray before, where he just said he wasn't mentally prepared?
Semantics, basically. I think we all kind of know what they meant by that. I mean, and obviously that's maybe what the Sixers are trying to find out. What is the nature of his mental sort of issues, basically. And I think that's what the Sixers are trying to find out. And how close does he think he is to returning? Is it a crisis of confidence? Is it something more than that? I think that's what the Sixers are trying to find out. To me, it's almost like the Sixers are butting their heads against a brick cement wall here. No one's really benefiting from it. So why go through it?
With what you said before, are the Sixers taking one for the league here?
Right. Exactly. I think in a way they might be, because again, you can't have a player who you just gave $45 million, or if not more, for 5 years, has 4 years left on that deal. Now he wakes up on a Tuesday and decides, I don't want to play here. If he forces his way out of the league or forces his way to another team, boy, that creates all sorts of basic havoc and stuff like that. And I know people say, well, the team can trade Simmons at any time. Why can't the player get out? I mean, that's, above my pay grade and stuff like that. But I do know the NBA teams think it's probably not good for the league if players who have 4 or 5 years left on a max contract can force their way out of it. If that's the case, just sign everybody to 1-year deals and let's have a big free agent offseason.
All right, a couple things real quick. Mike McGarry over at the Press of Atlantic City. It looks like high school sports is going to lose the Tournament of Champions. Is that something that they are realistically going to just stop?
Yeah, that's going to happen. It passed on first reading up at the NJSAA on Tuesday or Wednesday. It'll start next season, basically. And basically the deal is a couple of months ago, the NJSAA really made a move after getting some input from student athletes around the state to sort of shorten some of their seasons and give athletes a break, a little downtime between sports, right? If you did that in basketball, the basketball season would have been shortened by 2 weeks, which is kind of a drastic change. If you get rid of the Tournament of Champions, which only 6 teams from around the state make, then the other 400 teams in the state will have an extra week of the regular season. So the season will only be shortened by 1 week. So to me, it's a no-brainer. To me, I never found the Tournament of Champions to be a great event. It was dominated by non-public schools. Most public schools really had no shot. The last boys team to win it was Camden in 2001. So to get rid of it and have a more of a normal regular season, I'm 100% in favor of that.
I was going to say, what's the trade-off? You're getting rid of that. What's the trade-off that everybody else now gets more games or?
Right. Everybody gets an extra week of the season. Under the new calendar schedule, which would have taken effect last year, the basketball season would have been shortened by 2 weeks, which you would have seen some teams ending their basketball season before Valentine's Day, right? So you get rid of the Tournament of Champions, you add a week to the regular season, and you accomplish 2 goals. You give the kids a break, but you don't drastically alter the basketball season.
All right, so what's big tonight? What do we got going on in the football world tonight?
Great high school football. Thank God the rain has seemed to lift. We've got some big games. Del Barton at St. Augustine, Pennsauken at Millville, Long Branch at Ocean City. Semifinals for the public schools, quarterfinals for the non-publics continues tomorrow. Holy Spirit St. Joe in action, Cedar Creek in action. We got 6 teams left, 6 really high-quality teams, all playing high-quality opponents. It's going to be some great action out there this weekend.
All right, there you go. Mike McGarry from the Press of Atlantic City at AC Press McGarry here on a Friday edition of the Sports Bash. Thank you, Mike.
All right, we'll see you down the road. Thanks.
All right, his appearance is brought to you by Calvi Electric. Now we're offering residential services for your home and business online at calvielectric.com. I'm Mike Gill. This is the Sports Bash. And don't forget, next hour, Sal Paolantonio, Paul Hudrick. But right now, your chance to qualify. All right, there you go. There's your chance to qualify for 99 bottles happening Wednesday, November 24th. Vagabond Kitchen and Tap House, Egg Harbor Township. 99 bottles, 99 prizes, 99 tickets. Qualifiers right now, 609-573-3776. 609-573-3776. Good luck. Sal Paolantonio joins me next.
ESPN, now live.
All right, just after 3, it's a Sports Bash, 97.3 ESPN. Sal Pal Friday. Sal Paolantonio's here. A lot to discuss. Busy week with the Eagles and the Broncos. Sal Pal, thanks to my buddy Johnny G over there in Ocean City at the Burger Realty team. What's going on, Johnny G? I haven't seen you in a while. I haven't seen you text in a little bit. I got to get a Johnny G text on a Friday. Let us know you're listening here on a Sal Pal Friday. Here's Sal Paolantonio, ESPN senior NFL analyst, and he joins me right now on the Sports Bash 97.3 ESPN for another edition of Sal Pal Friday. Sal Pal, how are you, my man?
Oh, Michael, this is such a big weekend for the Philadelphia Eagles. Such a big game. I mean, this game will determine the rest of the season. I believe this game will decide whether the Eagles have a chance to break through and make it to a wild card spot or to the playoffs. This is the game right here.
I agree with that.
They lose this game and go 3-7. Michael, kind of hard to look at the schedule and say, all right, they can run the table and go 9-7.
I agree, and I was listening. I can't remember where I heard this, but it was something to do with the fact that a couple of years ago, they look like a team. Oh, you know what? I was making a promo for next week's Eagles game, Eagles Saints, and I was listening to some radio calls to get like the actuality from Merrill and Mike. And in there, it was a game against the Saints, and there was the playoff game against the Saints that they lost. And Mike Quick said, "Hey, what a difference this game was from the first time they played. And really, after that Saints game, which was like week 9 or 10, the complexion of that season really changed, and they became a playoff team. You didn't think they were a playoff team after they got blasted by the Saints. It was after that where they really started to put the pieces together. So I agree. Can they put the pieces together starting this week and find some semblance? The problem is, Sal, they're finding an identity on offense, but what the heck is their identity on defense?
Their identity is to give up a lot of yards and a lot of completions. That's their identity. I mean, listen, at the very least, Jonathan Gannon has to do some different things. Now, in this particular game against Teddy Bridgewater is a good place to start. You can take some chances against Teddy Bridgewater and not expect to get burned, because the Broncos really don't score more than 2 touchdowns and a field goal in most games. They rarely get to 21 points. Very rarely. So you can take some chances. So this is the week to take some chances.
Sure is. Now you sent me the blitz numbers. They went up slightly. 18.9 is where they are. It seemed that John Gannon was going to send more pressure, and then Slay got hurt, Maddox got hurt, and did he pull back there? I guess maybe we'll find out if those guys play this week, if he decides to put the pedal back down to the metal, because in the first half, I thought he did a nice job at getting some pressure on the Chargers, but that went away in the second half.
Yeah, especially in the last drive. Mike, I sound like a broken record on this show. I say it over and over again. People must be tired of me saying it. It is a blitzing league. The last 2 years, it has been a blitzing league. One, because the referees are not calling offensive holding. Offensive holding calls are still below where they were in 2018 and 2019. Last 2 years, you can hold. So if the offensive line is holding, the only way to get home is to send extra rushers. Now, all you got to do is look what happened last night in Miami. What happened?
Mm-hmm.
Brian Flores brought the highest number of defensive back blitzes to Lamar Jackson in the last 16 years. And so they beat a better team by blitzing a better quarterback.
Right.
And you saw in Tennessee in L.A., what did Shane Bowen do to Matthew Stafford? Sean McVay came out there with 4 wide and 5 wide, and they just blitzed him. By the way, do you know who's consulting as a defensive coordinator to Shane Bowen?
I think it's that Jim Schwartz.
That is correct. You're a very smart guy. That's why I'm on your show.
Yes, I was reading that Jim Schwartz is getting a lot of credit for some of the blitz packages that they have put together. And I guess that's a sign, Sal, that you have to have the right personnel to maybe to be a good blitzing team. Maybe Jim Schwartz never felt he had the right personnel. Maybe John Gannon feels the same way. But if I'm Nick Sirianni, at what point do I step in and say, hey, whatever adjustments you're making, they ain't working. It's time to get a little bit more aggressive.
Right. So Sirianni made the adjustments to save his job.
Correct.
Jonathan Gannon needs to make the adjustments to save his. That is the way I think this is going to go down. Either that or they're going to bring in somebody to help them, like Tennessee did. Some, with some experience, who knows where the bodies are buried in the NFL and knows how to get pressure or the illusion pressure, or at least confuse the quarterback. You can't have 5 quarterbacks complete over 80% of their passes. Michael. Justin Herbert completed 32 of 38. That should be brandished in people's memory forever. Now, just think of what Bud Carson and Jim Johnson and Buddy Ryan, how they were just rolling in their grave to think that Justin Herbert, a second-year quarterback, would come to South Philadelphia on a Sunday evening and pass 32 for 38. It's insane.
All right. And I'm watching that game. Look, everybody wants to get mad at Gannon with good. I'm looking at that at Sirianni and saying, is this where the head coach is inexperienced, where he has to step in at some point and say, God, Gannon, this ain't working, man. Like, does he get any? Is that how it works? Am I off base on that?
No, you're not. And, there's been a lot made in our region that Gannon is calling the blitzes, sending them in, and the guy with the green sticker on his helmet who's getting the calls is not following through.
Whoa.
Is audibling out of the blitzes. So that's where if you're the defensive coordinator, you call a timeout, Mr. Referee, and you bring that said linebacker to the sideline and you say, you do that again, and you're going to get a seat on the bench. And if you're Nick Sirianni and you come to find out that these blitzes are not being called, and listen, we're using this as a generic term, blitzes. But if 4 are not getting home to the quarterback, you got to send 5, Mike.
Yeah, I agree.
If 5 are not getting there, you got to send 6. That's how the Bears won their Super Bowl. The Ravens won theirs. How Spagnuolo won his in New York. This is how you do it. Like we said last year at the end of the Super Bowl, if you can't block the Bucks with 5 offensive linemen, Andy Reid, put 6 on the field. If you can't block them with 6, put 7 on the field. Come on, this is not rocket science.
I agree, and I have said a couple times. Look, Slay and Nelson and Maddox, they're those 3 guys are better than anything they've had the last couple of years. Put it in their laps. Stop. I can't for the life of me figure out why he continues to put so much pressure on his linebackers. Hey, linebackers, I'm not going to ask you to cover. I'm going to ask you to blitz. I need one of you guys to get after that quarterback. The other guy drops back, and I'm going to put it all on Slay and Nelson. And if they get beat, our best guys got beat.
And last night, again, the highest percentage of defensive back blitzes at Lamar Jackson. When was the last time you saw a corner or safety blitz? In Philly. When? I'll wait. How many games ago?
It's been a while, man. It's been a while. Those guys are playing
It's been
so
a
far
long
off the
while.
line.
I can't name a single one, Michael.
Those guys are playing so far off the line.
Yeah, I mean, you're playing a cover 2 or a cover 6 high school defense with late rotation by the safeties. It's extremely vanilla. And, I mean, you had Derek Carr, Dak Prescott, Justin Herbert. I mean, go down the list. These are guys who, they're setting career highs in pass completion percentage.
Sal, let's go to the other side. And you mentioned Sirianni. I gave him credit. He finally adjusted. Is it sustainable, though? Is this, he went from one extreme to the other, and you hate to be the cranky guy that says, well, now you're running too much, but is this sustainable? Does he have to mix it a little bit more, or do you just keep doing this until they stop you?
I think you keep doing it until they stop you. That's what I think. They have 412 yards rushing in the last 2 games with 6 rushing touchdowns, and they scored 68 points. That math stands alone, mutually exclusive to any other numbers you want to come up with. They have a running quarterback. They're limiting the number of throws that he makes. So he made an average of, 15 throws in the last 2 games.
Yep.
Eventually, they'll have to get that number up. See, I think Jalen Hurts is improving as they reduce his pass workload. So you have an average of about 60 offensive plays per game. Let's say you have 35 rushes, right?
Yep.
Now you got to come up with 25 other plays. So you have 35 rushes, and you have 20 pass plays. Now you got to find some way to fill in the gap so that you can score at least 3 touchdowns. You need about 60 plays in the NFL on average to score about 3 touchdowns plus a field goal. You need to get to 24 points to win most NFL games. That's what the gamblers will tell you. That's what the fantasy football people will tell you. That's what offensive coordinators will tell you. So fill in the blanks somewhere along the line, whether it's Jalen Hurts running with the football, or you add a pass play or 2, or you get up to 37 rushes. The magic number is 60. That's the magic number.
Got a Denver team that's a little beat up here. The offensive line's been a little bit of a mess for them recently, although they went to Dallas last week and punched them in the face and then punched them in the gut and then uppercutted them. I mean, they were really physical. They ran the ball a lot. So I see the line 2.5. It hasn't moved all week long. Kind of interesting number there with what we saw from these 2 teams last week.
Yeah, the number is pretty interesting. Listen, Vic Fangio's defense is second in the league in points allowed, number 2 behind the Bills. And the Bills are trending in the wrong direction, and the Broncos are trending in the right direction. I just don't think the Broncos can score enough points, believe it or not, to win this game. I have the Eagles winning 24-20.
24-20 Eagles. Sounds like a lot of runs, and John Gannon gets his defense together. So you're putting your thoughts on that Gannon can't go out with that defensive philosophy again.
Not well. I'm saying that if there's any quarterback and any offense where you have to show up against, it's Teddy Bridgewater and the Broncos offense. They just don't score very many points very often, Mike. They just don't.
Well, and we know,
so
too.
I would have 35 to 40 rushes and 10 rushes by Jalen Hurts.
Yeah.
15 or 16 pass plays by Jalen Hurts. And, the great thing about Jalen Hurts is he's not turning the ball over. He's not turning the ball over. He's not taking sacks. He's not creating needless negative plays. That's really the number one thing that he has achieved. It's not a great thing. It's not going to get you to the Super Bowl yet, but it is an achievement for a second-year quarterback.
Yeah.
No negative plays, not turning the ball. He only has 4 interceptions, Mike. Only has 4 interceptions, and he's not taking sacks because he can elude the rush. So Jalen will make some plays, about 10 to 12 plays, and then you add on about 35 rushes, and then you complete, 12 or 14 balls. It's all about rushing attempts and completions. If you add them up and they're over 50, you can win the game.
I agree with what you said early. This is a game that, look, if they want to make the playoffs or they want to continue to be in that conversation, they got to have this one because the back end of this schedule, they do have a lot of winnable games. And if they stick to the formula offensively the last couple of weeks, they should stay competitive, but they got to do something with the way they're calling defense right now. To me, that's
well,
imperative.
Look at the quarterbacks that they play. They play Teddy Bridgewater, and then who's playing quarterback now for the Saints?
Yes.
I forget. It's not
Simeon.
Taysom Hill.
Simeon.
Simeon. Okay, those are 2 quarterbacks that on paper, Michael, should not complete more than 70% of their passes. Right? So that's Simeon.
I'm with you there. Yep.
All right. Then they got Daniel Jones, right?
Yep.
And then they got Taylor Heineke?
Nope, they're going to play the Jets after the Giants.
No, okay, beautiful. Mike White, Then they get Taylor Heineke, right?
Correct.
Then they get Jones, and then they get Prescott. So what?
No. They got Heineke, Jones, and then Heineke again.
Oh, geez. Right, I forgot about that. So of those
that was a great reaction, Sal. Oh, jeez.
Oh, geez. So of those quarterbacks, which is the one that really scares you?
Oh, I said after Herbert, they have a chance now to limit the quarterback damage. They got a chance to find an identity with their offense, which they did earlier than we thought. They got to figure out, where they have been successful against teams that have poor offensive lines, too. That's another factor because they need their defensive front to get the pressure. The Lions have a bad front. Atlanta has a bad front. So a lot of these teams have that in common as well.
But still, Michael, it's very, very hard to run the table.
Oh, yeah.
So you got to win this game. You can't be 3-7
Agree.
and say, "Oh, we're going to run the table." No. You're 3-7. There's nothing in your history this season that suggests you're going to run the table and make the playoffs. That's why this is line in the sand stuff. Whatever Sirianni is going to say, whatever metaphor he's coming up with the night before the game in the Mile High City, it's got to be, hey, we're drawing a line in the sand. This is it. It stands right here. We win this game. We turn the fortunes around of this team, of this coaching staff. It all starts right here, right now in the Mile High City. That's the message he's got to deliver.
Very good. Sal Paolantonio likes Philadelphia this week on the road in Denver. Their 3 wins have all come on the road. I don't know that they've ever won in Denver before. That's something that's in the mix here. They did beat the Broncos pretty handily in Lincoln Financial Field a couple of years. What was that, 2017? They beat them like 52-16.
Mike, this Denver Broncos offense should not scare you. I mean, listen, if the Denver Broncos under Teddy Bridgewater embarrass Jonathan Gannon and this defense again, then we know we have an unfixable problem. You would agree with me on that, right? This is Teddy Bridgewater.
Yeah.
You should be able to hold him under 65% of completion rate, and you should win the game. The Broncos don't score a heck of a lot of points. They just don't. And if they do that against this Eagles defense, then we know it's not fixable and a change is necessary.
All right, Sal Paolantonio, where are you at this weekend?
Foxborough.
There you go. Now that's a team right there. I'm telling you what, I think that's a playoff team you're watching.
Well, Michael, I don't disagree with you. Mac Jones and the Patriots defense, Michael, they're 10th in the league in scoring with a rookie quarterback. Mike, 10th in the league with a rookie quarterback, and their defense is pretty good.
Yep. Oh, the defense
that's pretty good. But yeah. I'm interested to see whether they can beat this team, this Cleveland team.
Cleveland and New England, that's where you'll be. Of course, we'll have our eyes here. Philadelphia, Denver, that is right here on 97.3 ESPN. Sal Pal Friday in the book. Sal, enjoy the rest of the weekend.
Thanks for having me on your program. I really appreciate it.
As always, Johnny G and the Burger Really team helping us out there with Sal Paolantonio, as he does every Friday here on the Sports Bash, a Sal Pal Friday. He likes Philadelphia 24-20. His reasoning, well, they simply just don't score, Denver. If they're going to score against somebody, they might say it might be against this team. Josh, we have more qualifiers. Who we got?
You got Martin in Cape May Courthouse.
I like a guy named Martin.
Bobby in Mays Landing.
All right, Bob.
And
now, does he go by Bob or Bobby?
He says Bobby.
Okay.
And then Jim in Irma.
Jim and Irma. All right. Bobby, Jim, and Martin. Congratulations to those 3.
It sounds like a band or something.
Whatever it sounds like, I'll see them all, hopefully. Now, I don't want the person to enter and then not show up.
That would be disappointing.
You're taking someone else's hard-earned spot. These lines light up trying to get in, and then you get in, and then you don't show. That's no fun.
Yeah, this is supposed to be for everybody to go out, have a good time the night before Thanksgiving.
Oh, by the way, yeah, you've never been to the actual event.
No, I haven't.
You're on this side. It's a party, man. I mean, that place starts filling up. We usually tell people try to get there by like 4-ish, hang out, watch the show so that we can start registering you on site to get an order. I mean, to get 99 people in some sort of order, and then we'll start getting the bottles ready and everything. but you're hanging out, you're watching the show, you're meeting other listeners and hanging out. It's a really good time.
And usually there's like a game or two on the television, so you're hanging out with people, you're watching, you're seeing what's going on.
I did get a confirmed from one Pete Thompson.
Oh,
will be hanging out that day with me.
That's good to know.
I should get the Schweimer to come.
It's a good question. If you invite the Schweimer, can he be there?
Sports Bash Live, 97.3 ESPN. What's happening coming up is Paul Hudrick. He's going to talk more about the Sixers and what happened last night. Ben Simmons, the loss, Tyrese Maxey, what's going on. The Sports Bash this hour brought to you by East Coast Roofing, Siding, Windows, serving all of South Jersey. If you call, they'll show up online, eastcoastroofing.com. Happy Hour Friday with you, Mike Gill. Sports Bash 97.3 ESPN. Paul Hudrick is here. We're talking a little Sixers. Obviously, more Ben Simmons news continues to come down, unfortunately. But this one last night had a lot of people worked up. We'll talk to Paul about that. What's the latest with Ben, which doesn't seem to be going away there, Paul Hudrick. And the Sixers lose last night, fall to 8-5. Now they got a brutal 6-game road trip out west. Things are starting to get a little interesting here. What's going on, man?
Just kind of take it in stride. It's just been it's been weird. I mean, that's to say that about this Sixers team and everything we've seen over the years. Like I think we don't appreciate how weird this, you know what I mean? Like any other team, this would be the weirdest thing to ever happen to them. But with this team, it's just like a little bit weirder than what we've seen in the past.
You're right. It's almost like, okay, this Ben Simmons thing has been going on. It's like some guy yesterday. We were talking about Ben Simmons yesterday, based on what Doc said about Giannis. I was talking about Marcus Hayes' article, basically saying you can't help but think that Doc is thinking about Ben when he makes the comments about Giannis, and I was kind of talking about that. And the guy, I was at Chickies and Pete's, and he said, do you ever get tired of just talking about Ben? I said, it's different every day. It's crazy that this story is different. And then last night, I guess in the middle of the game, this story from Shams comes out. I'm imagining, you're at the game last night. I'm sure you guys are seeing this. Are you like, what is this now?
Yeah, and it was tough because the game was close. It was a lot of back and forth. Tyrese Maxey was playing great. And it's funny, Mike, because the story drops and I'm trying to skim it as I'm also writing a recap and trying to figure stuff out. And right after I'm in the middle of reading the story, Tyrese Maxey hits a 3 and then tries for a layup. And I'm like, there's some kind of symbolism here of this happening while I'm reading this story. And it's just, it's so hard at this point to make heads or tails of anything, because on one hand, Rich Paul is, you have to say he's crushing the Sixers organization. He really is. That story was, Shams, I guess, tried to be, give the Sixers their say, and he clearly reached out to the team and they gave them their response to it. But this Rich Paul was trying to bury the Sixers with this. He can try to be nice at the end and say oh, well, I appreciate the ownership and I respect Daryl Morey, but then everything else he says is not that. So, and it's also hard for me. There's two big things that stand out to me. One is Rich Paul saying, I don't appreciate how the Sixers are making this public. Meanwhile, you're releasing this to one of two of the biggest reporters in the entire NBA. So if that's the case, I don't think what you're doing is helping the situation either. If your argument that what the Sixers are doing is not helping Ben Simmons' health, I don't think his agent coming out and crushing the team is helping him either. And then the other thing that really struck me was at the end when he compares it to the John Wall situation, which is that's nonsense. How can you even remotely? The only thing those situations have in common is that it's two of Rich Paul's clients. There's no other comparison. John Wall doesn't want to be with Houston. Houston doesn't want John Wall. That's mutual. That is a situation where both teams are going for the same goal. If there was a situation where Houston could trade John Wall tomorrow for anything, they do it. The Sixers don't want that. They want to keep Ben Simmons. They want Ben Simmons here, or if not, they want to trade for a player of his caliber. So
I'm thinking to myself last night, Paul, I'm thinking, is Rich Paul proud that he has two high-profile players essentially sitting out? You're like, does this look good for him?
Well, you know what the thing is, Mike, and it's not that I like this, but the fact is Rich Paul wins here no matter what, because his goal right now is get Ben Simmons out of Philadelphia by any means necessary. Clearly, that is his goal with everything he's done. Meanwhile, while he's doing that, his other client that is on the Sixers playing in place of Ben Simmons looks like he's becoming a star before our eyes. So he's doing whatever he can to get Ben Simmons out of Philadelphia. And then when that happens, guess what? Tyrese Maxey extension time comes up. Sixers got to pay up. So for Rich Paul, this is I know that's going to piss a lot of people off, but it's the reality. He wins in this no matter what the outcome is. He wins.
Well, Do you think he's doing his client Ben Simmons justice right now?
In the sense that Ben Simmons' only goal is to get out of Philadelphia, yes, he's doing what his client wants in his eyes, and I'm sure for Ben's part, he probably, I'm sure, like I don't know the inner workings of it, but I'm sure the instruction from Ben Simmons was get me out of Philadelphia, no matter what it takes. And I think what you're seeing is that plan being executed. So I think from Ben Simmons' standpoint, as Rich Paul's client, yeah, I think Ben Simmons is satisfied, especially as long as Ben Simmons ends up not in Philadelphia, then Rich Paul wins. Now, is it possible they hold on to him and wait it out and bleed it out and hold him beyond the trade deadline? Sure, it's possible, but that's getting into an ugly situation and some ugly territory because you can't waste another year of Joel Embiid's prime by holding on to this guy. Like, I don't know what's ultimately going to happen, but if you hold on to him after the trade deadline, you better make one hell of a move in the offseason because that will be another year of Joel Embiid's prime not fully utilized.
Well, I mean, and then the one thing I guess I'd like to see where you stand is Paul Hudrick, LibertyBallers.com is with us, covers the Sixers, obviously. This Simmons thing is, I mean, the one thing, and they talked about it last night, Mark Jackson went off on the fact that, Rich Paul says mental health. Before they were saying he wasn't mentally prepared. I mean, I guess for me, I was under the understanding that they were, by saying mentally prepared, that they were talking about his mental health. But it sounds like a lot of people are saying, hey, what you said is two different things. You were saying he's not mentally prepared to play. That's different than saying he's got mental health issues that he needs to clear up.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's, unfortunately for all of us, we don't know the inner workings of every single conversation that the Sixers have had with Ben in his camp. But from what I understand from the Sixers perspective, it didn't become evident to them that this was a mental health issue until he addressed the team. I believe that was like October 22nd or so was the date of that, when before a shoot around, he addressed the team and I guess, showed some vulnerability and let them know that he was going through a mental health issue. And that's why he wasn't mentally prepared to play for the team. Rich Paul can test that the team knew about this since the summer. I'm not so sure. I don't know. And it's there's so much gray area when you're talking about the mental health issue.
If the Sixers, not to cut you off, but if the Sixers knew about this from the summer, like you said Monday maybe, or maybe last week, that, hey, he's been talking to someone through the summer. Like that has not been out there. Like, so, but if to me, if he would have approached this in the summer and said, this is what he's dealing with, this whole thing is different. The fact that he's
100%,
the fact that he's holding on to, he tried to, it's almost like the stigma of mental health, that Ben's embarrassed to say he has an issue. He doesn't want to use that as an excuse. It was almost, he had to basically use it as an excuse. I personally believe the guy. I think it's the only thing that does make sense here is that this guy has mental health issues. That totally believable, totally makes sense. I understand why people don't believe him because of when he finally admitted this. There's your issue. So I don't think this is the Sixers not acquiescing correctly. I think it's you did not present it correctly.
It's that, and then it's just, and I think we touched on this. I think earlier this week. It's just the idea of Ben leaving the Sixers in the dark on everything. So it's totally believable that this never came up until October 22nd, because it seems as though they've been that Ben has kept the Sixers in the dark about everything, about clearly going through a mental health issue and not disclosing that. And I get, like, mental health, it is very sensitive, and you don't, the team has no right to really dive into it. But at the same time, if you work somewhere and you're telling your employer you're not mentally prepared to do that job, there needs to be a line of communication open with your employer to let them know what is happening with you, even though you're not sharing intimate details, but you're at least letting them know, hey, this is what I'm doing. I need time. I think for me, Mike, and it's it's such a weird situation. Like I'm at a point where if I'm the Sixers, and the Sixers probably aren't here, but I just pay him and tell him to stay home. Like that's where I'm at, because this isn't what's going on right now is not working. And I get it's money, and you want to, like, he doesn't want to get fined, so he's going to keep showing up, and they don't, but it's so tricky because they want to pay him in good faith that he is taking steps and taking measures to get himself back on the court and to do the job that he's being paid to do. So, I mean, for me, if I'm the Sixers at this point, I would probably just pay him to stay home, because I don't think this story has just muddied the waters, and no one looks good right now. You know what I mean? No one looks good with this story coming out. The Sixers don't really look good. Ben doesn't look good. Rich Paul doesn't look good. None of it looks good. So, if he's not giving you a clear indication, if you don't think he is doing all of these things in good faith in order to return to the team and play basketball for the Philadelphia 76ers, then I think you pay him to stay home and just wait till you find a trade. And that's the way I think it almost has to be. I don't think the Sixers are going to do that, but if I were them, that's what I would do at this point.
Right. And then, we have discussed before, hey, I'll give you 3 role players, trying to find time for those guys just doesn't make sense. Hey, I've got Maxey, Milton. You're going to give me another, hybrid guard. You're going to give me another guy to mix in with Tobias Harris and Georges Niang. I mean, like, where am I playing? Look what's going on in Atlanta right now. They can't get out of their own way. They got 12 guys he can't find time for.
I mean, and now, like, look at what's happening in Atlanta and the fact that they're not playing well. They're not having a good start to the season. Look at Boston, and they're not having a great start. Minnesota's a team that, has been rumored towards Ben Simmons. They're not off to a good start. Look what's going on in Portland today. Their president and CEO resigns. Neil Olshey might be right behind him. So the point is all these things kind of are in flux, and there's so much disarray around the league that trading Ben for, like you said, role players doesn't make sense from the standpoint of that there are other things that might open up that might, allow you to perhaps negotiate for a star. And on top of that, to your point, yeah, like, are you going to trade for a guy who is, again, Malcolm Brogdon can't be traded, but you're going to trade for a Malcolm Brogdon and then put Tyrese Maxey on the bench and stunt his growth right now?
So
I'm not convinced that Malcolm Brogdon is actually better than Tyrese Maxey.
It has to be the right mix. It has to be the right mix of, like, okay, obviously they don't need another big man. They got Joel Embiid and Andre Drummond. I don't need another big man. If you're going to give me a third big man to be like an 8-minute a game guy, that's not necessary. I got Paul Reed. I've got Bassey. I don't need that. I don't really have room for another 4. I've got Harris and I've got Niang, so I don't need another guy there. Could I use another guy to mix in with Danny Green? Fine. Okay. If you give me that guy. But if you're going to give me 2 other guys, where am I? Like, it just doesn't seem that giving me a bunch of guys is a step in the right direction. So I'm telling you, they have really got their hands, both sides, I think, have their hands tied in a tough spot here. I don't think that Ben Simmons and Rich Paul are sitting there in a room together right now thinking, we've really got them where we want them. Like, now, did you find it interesting? Because a lot of people have said this. Oh, I bet if Ben gets traded, he'd be right out on the court. Or that if he got traded before the season started, that he wouldn't be saying he has mental problems, that he would be playing for whatever team he got traded to. Now, the report last night suggested that if he gets traded, even at that point, he's not going to be ready to play. Now, he might just be saying that to help expedite a deal, but if you're another team, doesn't that throw another wrinkle into this, that if I trade for Ben Simmons, he might not even be ready to play this year based on what this report said?
Yeah, I mean, if you're trading him to a team that is trying to be competitive this year, they have to have some serious concerns about that, if that's the case. And, now if you're trading into a team like maybe Minnesota, where they have maybe a longer lens and they're looking big picture, they're not as worried about this season, or they're just trying to get, basically they're either like trying to just get into the playoffs, or they're a team that's up and coming, then yeah, you're not as concerned. But if you're a team that is trying to compete for something and is interested in Ben Simmons, I think it gives you serious pause about where he is, because you don't know what exactly you're getting when you trade for him. So I find that a little odd. And I've seen some people kind of suggest that, like, oh, maybe Rich Paul has like kind of a wink and nod thing with a team. Like if you do trade for him, he's fine, he's going to play. But
jeez,
that after you just grandstanded last night over the Sixers making this situation worse, it would be such a terrible look for you to then have a handshake agreement with another GM to say, oh, but if he gets traded to you, he's going to be fine, he's going to play. Like it has the potential to be a really ugly situation. I could see the league not feeling, and like
that was going to be my follow-up.
And I don't want to go there, Mike, but there is a part of me that feels like they are. Not to say, I want to make it very abundantly clear that I do think there is a mental health situation going on with Ben Simmons. But if Rich Paul and Ben Simmons are trying to take advantage of that, that's disgusting. Like, it really flat out is. If that's the case, that's happening, if they're attempting to use the situation in order to create momentum for a trade, that not only is that despicable, that needs to be, quite frankly, investigated by the league, that someone would try to take advantage of a situation in mental health, which is finally starting to overcome, the stigma is starting to go away on it. When you do something like this, that could perhaps make it worse like that. And I don't want to say that that's the case, but this situation looks really bad for Rich Paul for him to implicate that the Sixers are not taking the mental health of Ben Simmons seriously enough for him to kind of go publicly with that. And then if there was a situation where another team he had like a handshake agreement with, like that's some really shady stuff.
My last question for you, Paul, is this, and you kind of touched on it. I didn't want to cut you off, but at what point, or at any point, or how is the league perceiving this? Are they just going to let this run its course for a year? Do they jump in after the trade deadline if he doesn't get traded and then he's really starting to bark? How is the league? They have to be watching this and saying, this is an utter disaster for us.
I feel pretty confident that the league, in some way, we might not know about it, but I'm sure that there have been calls between the Sixers in the league office and Rich Paul. I'm sure there have been, because it's the precedent this could potentially set for the league, as for, Ben Simmons is a guy in the first, only 1 year into a max deal at his age, demanding a trade and sitting out. And then on top of that, the almost loophole in the CBA where, and I'm not saying that they're doing this, but the point, like the idea that all a player has to do is say that they're having a mental health issue and they can continue to get paid, and then eventually that could be their loophole into getting traded. It just sets a really poor precedent for future dealings and for what could come down the road. So with that said, I'm sure the league is, one, really closely monitoring everything going on, and I'm sure that they are in communication with Ben, with the Players Association, with the Sixers as well, to make sure that everything, they're handling what is already a really messy situation, that they handle it as best as they possibly can.
Paul Hudrick, the Sixers are out west now, starting Saturday in Indiana, which isn't really west, but that's where the trip starts. And then they're in Utah, Denver, Portland, Sacramento, Golden State, before they finally find their way back home against Minnesota. They won't be back home until after Thanksgiving. This is a very interesting stretch of games coming up.
It's very difficult when you consider, I don't foresee it's difficult to project that Joel Embiid will play in any of the 6 games. I don't know. Like, maybe he does join the team at some point when he's out of protocols and is feeling better, but is that in his best interest? And is that really in the team's best interest for the rest of the season? Would you might not prefer maybe him to work out at home, get his win back, get feeling better? I mean, I don't know.
Right.
Tobias Harris played.
They're out west. The fact that they're out west.
Yeah.
And having to get him to meet them out there somewhere, I think that throws a little wrench into all this too.
100%. And that's what makes it so difficult. If they were in, let's say, I don't know, like New York or DC or something like that, yeah, that is much more feasible. But yeah, being out west, I mean, it's certainly doable. They can figure out a way to get him on a plane, by himself, out west. But
yeah,
do you want to do that? Do you want to subject him to that? Do you want to subject him to that kind of travel? Tobias Harris did play, 36 minutes last night, and he said he felt good. So, he is vaccinated, and maybe that helps these guys to not have to deal with lingering issues. But yeah, it's going to be a really difficult trip, because it's not only is it West Coast difficult and all that, they're playing some pretty good teams too.
Yep.
So add that to the mix, and it could make for a really difficult road trip.
He's Paul Hudrick, at Paul Hudrick on Twitter. Check out LibertyBallers.com. They do a great job covering the 76ers. And, of course, he'll be back on Monday after this weekend where they play the Pacers. We'll see if Embiid and all the latest. I'm sure Ben Simmons' side might have a response. Paul, thanks, man.
Anytime, Mike. You got it, man. Have a good weekend.
There's Paul Hudrick, Liberty Ballers, inside the Sixers each and every Monday, Wednesday, Friday with us right here on the Sports Bash Live on 97.3 ESPN. Paul does a great job covering the Sixers, and I appreciate him coming on the show a couple times with us here throughout the week. When we come back, Adam Caplan, football at 4 in 11 minutes from now. Nick Ferguson covers the Denver Broncos, former Denver Bronco. He'll fill us in on the Denver Broncos, who, by the way, don't have a play caller on Sunday. I'll tell you why next. All right, Sports Bash Live, 97.3 ESPN, the free mobile app. Don't forget, coming up next hour, Adam Caplan, football at 4. Also, Nick Ferguson will give us the outside view from Denver, former Denver Broncos safety, and happy hour Friday with the PT on a Friday show as well. Hey, I got the news for you. Former Eagle offensive coordinator Pat Shurmur, he is the play caller for the Denver Broncos. He is out on Sunday with COVID-19. Vic Fangio, the current head coach, who was a defensive-minded guy, says, I don't know who's going to call the plays for Denver on Sunday. I don't know if that's a good thing or bad thing. Sometimes we just find these guys who like never called plays before and they come out and they, just say, hey, this is the only time I'm ever going to get a chance to do this. But Denver is dealing with a lot of issues. We're going to focus in on them coming up next during Football at 4. Adam Caplan, Nick Ferguson, don't go away. Plus one thought every game tonight at 5 o'clock with Casey Joyner. And next hour, another chance for you to qualify for 99 bottles. Football at 4 is powered by the Inside the Birds podcast, and it is brought to you locally by Caesars Entertainment Group of Atlantic City. Come experience the ultimate sports destination all season long. Wild Wild West, Tropicana, Harrah's Resort, Atlantic City. Book your game day experience today at Caesars.com. I'm Mike Gill. This is the Sports Bash live on 97.3 ESPN. It's time for Football at 4. The host of the Inside the Birds podcast, Jeff Mosher, and this man, Adam Caplan, on a happy hour Friday. It's Eagles and Broncos. Adam, I heard a rumor that you're calling plays for the Broncos this week.
Yeah, how about that? So Pat Shurmur, the Broncos just confirmed in the last hour or so that he's not available. So it's COVID-19 issue, so he's not clear to work. Mike Shula is almost certainly going to call the play because Mike called them for the Panthers years ago. It's funny. I talked to coaches who've been in this spot, not for COVID, but where they've had to take over because a coach was unavailable, like a son or daughter got married, or they had to be away for something. And it's not easy because you're running somebody else's offense. And this is a West Coast offense. So Troll knows the terminology, but he hasn't called the play. So play calling's an art. He's been with them for a while, so he knows the personnel, but it's not the guy who's been calling the play. So it's, the next question is it an advantage to the Eagles defense? And the question will be yes, theoretically, because you're not having the guys calling the plays every week. So it's a small advantage. How they take advantage of it will play throughout the game.
Right. Now, obviously, Denver, this is a team that is not a great offensive crew, right? It's not like you're the play caller and you're like, hey, I got this guy I can lean on or that I can kind of go to. This is an offense that is kind of challenged, Adam. They don't really have that standout kind of guy.
Oh, actually, they're loaded, Mike. They have Cortland Sutton, Jerry Jeudy, Tim Patrick, who's could be one of the top free agents next year, Melvin Gordon, Javonte Williams. Okay, they're loaded on offense. The problem is the quarterback. Teddy Bridgewater is just not a guy. There's a reason why the Panthers didn't want him. He doesn't challenge downfield very much. We'll take an occasional shot. To me, he just holds the offense down. The offense should be way better than it is. Now, last week, their defense was dominant. We certainly can get to that. Their defense most weeks is really good. They just had a bad game against the Raiders. That was the Raiders' first game without John Gruden, and they didn't play well. That was in Denver, but they just completely shut down the Cowboys. They were up 30-0 to one point. Their offense could be top 5 if they had a better quarterback. Let's put it that way. I think that's kind of what you're alluding to. They're not a high-powered offense because
exactly. They're not an explosive offense for what their quarterback holds them back.
They could, but they don't
score a whole heck of a lot. They only average 20 points a game.
Right, but we saw it last week. We've seen it sporadically where you go, wow, that was a big play, but they don't make enough because they don't have a big-time quarterback. Drew Lock, their hope was that he would win the job. He's got a much stronger arm, but he doesn't have Teddy Bridgewater's accuracy. So that's the interesting matchup. Sunday is, okay, we know that the Broncos have some of the tallest receivers. They don't have a receiver who's shorter than 6'1". How do they deploy them? And also, I should mention they're very talented tight end. Noah Fant's off the COVID list. Albert O, the other tight end, who's a 4th rounder last year, was super athletic. So if they spread the Eagles out, which I'm sure they'll do, that's where I think the Eagles are going to have some problems.
Right. Now, you mentioned Bridgewater and the fact that he doesn't have this big arm. This is almost the perfect defense for him. I mean, if they're going to call defense the way they have the first couple of weeks, Teddy Bridgewater's probably going to love this. Yeah,
look, last week what happened was the Eagles decided that, like they always do, not only will they not let you throw the ball downfield, they're like, we want you to throw the ball within 10 yards. And that's what they did to Keenan Allen, who Nick Sirianni coached when he was receivers coach with the Chargers many years ago. So he knows him very well. And Allen, who's not explosive, just he's great in a short area, gets open repeatedly. So the thing is, it's going to be Jerry Jeudy's area. He is their main slot receiver, first round out of Alabama, who the Eagles really liked last year coming into the draft. So he's a guy that you're going to see a lot. I'm sure you'll see a lot of him. Avonte Maddox told us on Inside the Birds that he will play. And true to his word, he will play. He does not have an injury designation for the game. So that's a good thing with his knee injury. He didn't say what it is, but he told us on Tuesday that he'd be able to play. And he's going to be targeted because Jerry Jeudy's a guy who's going to get a lot of work on Sunday.
Yeah, I know that you mentioned their arsenal. They got guys Sutton, Patrick, Jeudy. I thought Patrick played excellent last week. So what is John Gannon's – how does he defend the wide receivers? You mentioned the tight end here. We've heard so much about not getting enough pressure. Is this a week where you want to get those corners up, pressure these guys, and make Bridgewater make mistakes, or do you want to sit back a little bit more? How does John Gannon approach this?
It's a good question. I would think he's going to have to get a little bit of be aggressive, because Bridgewater is sort of I would call him a careful quarterback. He won't turn the ball over very much. He'll just check it down to the running back. So you got Melvin Gordon, who's always caught the ball well. Javonte Williams, who I love. He'll be the starter next year. He'll be a breakout player for me. He's number 33, second round out of North Carolina. I would think that you'll see the checkdowns to Melvin Gordon. He's had some big plays in the passing game this year. I would say, to answer your question, I think it's going to be some short area stuff. Tight ends will certainly be involved. The Eagles occasionally don't do well against tight ends. Last week, you saw they really didn't do well. So I think those guys could be a part of it. The Eagles simply don't press. They're one of the least press man teams. They're just pressing. You could play zone and press, but they don't. They've done a little bit more with their corners up than they have before, but it's just very little. So that's not good when you're going against these big receivers. I'm worried about this matchup, to be honest with you. I just don't think the Eagles have the cover players to match up well against Denver.
I saw last week a lot of that Denver game, and what they did was something that the Eagles have problems with. They ran the ball right at Dallas. I mean, they basically said, try and stop us. And I would imagine that if they're going to go to that again, Philadelphia's going to have a problem.
Yeah, and what's interesting about the Eagles' run defense. We looked at the last 2 weeks. Sure, it's been great, no doubt. Well, the Churches don't run the ball very much. Austin Eckler's not a volume running back. And then if you look at the week before, the Eagles got a big lead early, and the Lions just couldn't get into the run game. So I wouldn't say the run defensive issues are solved yet. I don't trust it. And we know Denver will run the football with Gordon and Javonte Williams. So this is just if you just broke down the matchups of both sides of the football, they favored Denver almost everywhere. Except the Eagles' offensive line's better, and Denver's got some injury issues at both tackles. That's where they could take advantage, but they didn't take advantage of the Chargers' issues on the right side of their offensive line last week.
That's right. What was the guy's name? Storm
Norton, yeah.
Storm Norton. He held up pretty good at there.
He did.
I was going to ask you about how the Denver offensive line injuries are going to factor into this game. There's been a lot of talk about how beat up this team is.
Yeah, so Bobby Massey, the right tackle, doesn't look good for him. Garrett Bowles almost certainly won't play with his high ankle sprain. He's their left tackle. They've got a couple below-average tackles. Calvin Anderson and Cameron Fleming probably will be their starting tackles. Fleming started a bunch of years. He's been with a bunch of teams. He's a journeyman. So what happened last week was they had Justin Herbert get rid of the ball very quickly. A lot of three-step drops. Paul was out within 1.75 seconds. That's how you defeat a pass rush. But when you do that, you got to press the receivers. And they didn't do that to negate that. And that was a mistake tactically. So that to me is the key here. And also, yeah, they could be without three linemen. I know they're definitely Quinn Meinertz, the third rounder at Wisconsin Whitewater. He'll definitely start this week at right guard. So they're going to be without as many as three offensive linemen this week. The question is, the only way the chance the Eagles have to win this game is if they pressure Bridgewater because of those injuries on their offensive line.
All right, last 2 weeks, obviously, Nick Sirianni, the light has hit him in the head. We can run the ball. We can do that. How will he find running the ball this week against, Los Angeles? Not a very good run stuffing team. Detroit, not very good. Where's Denver?
Denver's above average. What happened was, like, the week they really were awful. Dearness Johnson had his first ever NFL start. Now he'll start again this week for the Browns, but he went off against them for over 140 yards on 22 carries. That game was in Cleveland, but they had a lot of missed tackles. Oh, another note for Denver, where there's some advantages. They're down 4 inside linebackers, 2 outside linebackers. Obviously, Von Miller was traded. Their other outside linebacker, Bradley Chubb's on injured reserve. He had ankle surgery earlier this season. They're down 4 inside linebackers. In fact, they could be down 5. Baron Browning, who's now taken over, he was not even supposed to play this season. He's a back injury. We have to see what he does today. The Broncos are practicing right now, so we have to see what they do. So the one Eagles advantage they have is their line is really good versus Denver's nondescript defensive line. That, to me, to answer your question, I would come out running again. The formula for them to play competitive football the last 2 weeks is very simple. Take the air out of the football. You saw the first 2 series last week. Hurts was inaccurate. I thought Sirianni did a very good coaching tactical move there. He took the air out of the ball. And you notice in the third quarter, because they kept running, Hurts got real comfortable and made some great throws. That to me should be the formula. You got to come out running. And when Miles Sanders comes back, I wouldn't change it, but we'll see.
We will see. You mentioned Hurts. This Denver secondary, lowest percentage of zone defense in the NFL. How does that work for the Eagles passing game?
Yeah, it is amazing. Them and the Ravens play the least amount of zone. They play a lot of man because they, it's interesting. When you look at their secondary, they're down a lot of corners. Old friend Ronald Darby's got to be in there. The knock on him, as we first outlined probably 2 or 3 years ago, and Inside the Birds, is that he's got bad eye discipline. Goes for the fakes, peeks in the backfield. Kyle Fuller, who the Broncos tried to trade because he lost his starting job, he's back starting. And Nate Hairston, who went to Temple, he's their slot corner now. Patrick Surtain is very questionable and doubtful with a knee sprain. Ronald Darby would be starting with him. So right now, Kyle Fuller and Darby and Hairston are your top corners. They don't have anyone else really, so they can't suffer another injury. But the Eagles have to be careful. The way that they're staying competitive is running the football. So I'm not a run game guy. Coaches will tell you, let's do what helps us win. And if the defense would have shown up last week, they would have beaten the Chargers. The defense didn't show up. They scored 24 points. Most weeks, 24 points will win you a game, but last week the defense faltered and they lost.
Right. Now, they activated Jordan Howard from the practice squad, or signed him from the practice squad to the active roster. It's going to be interesting to see when Sanders comes back, how they utilize him. But, is Howard the key again this week? Do you feed him? He had 17 carries last week. Is he the guy you go with?
Yeah, and their line just created a big oval. They created so much room for him to run. I don't want to say that he looked great last week. It's just that, he did look good, but they opened lines. They opened all holes for him. And look, Jordan Howard, other than Miles Sanders in training camp, he was their best back. He beat out Boston Scott. Boston Scott had a nice camp, but Howard was really good. But because he didn't really fit what they were looking for at a running back, they cut him, put him in the practice squad, and they did sign him off there. So they have one elevation left. This counts as a signing. That's why they did the signing. They didn't waste the last elevation. You only have 3 per player. And it'll be, like you said, when Sanders comes back, then the question is, do they keep Howard on the active roster? Because the only way you can get him to the practice squad is by waiving him. All players, if you want to cut him, they're waived after the trade deadline, and the only way you could get him is you got to pass through waivers. So you take that chance that someone could claim him if he continues to play well. Then you saw Boston Scott had 10 carries. Hurts had some really nice runs, some designed, some where he went on his own. But the interesting thing is, if they get in a throw fest, which they have not had to do in a while, how will they deploy the passing game other than Smith and Goddard? Because Watkins simply does not get the ball enough, and Rager does not at all.
Yeah. Well, that's evident that Rager is almost deemed not even a part. I mean, you see them running 13 personnel a lot. They're putting what's the third tight end? Tyree Jackson got a lot of snaps on 13 personnel last week, and that's basically because they're running so much. But I want to ask you about Smith and Goddard, those two guys. Smith seemingly is becoming a bigger part of the offense, but it's harder to get these receivers involved with 13 and so many runs.
And I can't listen. I've criticized Sirianni a lot this season, but the coaching has been really good offensively. They went with what would win. They went with a high percent. Anytime you play 3 tight ends more than like 5 plays, that's known as a lot in the National Football League. There's some teams that never use 3 tight ends at all in a game. Some teams only dress 2 tight ends. Or you could have gone jumbo, where you could have gone with a bigger offensive lineman, but they went with 3 tight ends. And the other thing is, because Jackson was so accomplished as a pass catcher, I saw him in training camp make some spectacular catches because he can move for a guy 6'7". Don't be shocked when he's out there that he catches the football. The one thing they don't have at receiver is size, and when you spread guys out, he's a mismatch. You're not the only guy who can match up on is Justin Simmons, who's the tallest safety in the NFL at 6'3". But you're going to see a lot of on Goddard. That you can count on Sunday.
Hey, Adam, you guys on Inside the Birds this week spent a lot of time talking about John Gannon and whether it's personnel or scheme. Where do you kind of sit on where this is? Because we might find out a little bit more this week.
I think it's a combination. You've got at safety, you've got 2 older guys, right, in their 30s. Anthony Harris is a guy who's here because of Gannon. He knows him from the Minnesota defense. And Rodney McLeod has done a nice job coming back from his latest injury. These are guys who may not be with the team next year. You're a corner that one thing, and I don't know how we missed this for 2 months, but the Eagles don't really have a backup outside corner. McPherson's not ready. He wasn't ready last week when he came in. So just think about it, right? If the Broncos spread them out when they go to 11 personnel, how are the Eagles going to combat that? Okay, yeah, sure. Maddox is the slot corner. You got the 2 outside receivers. If somebody gets hurt, are you going to put Maddox on the outside where he's not as comfortable? That's a problem.
They got 9 corners on this roster. None of them
can play outside. None of them are good enough. None of them are good. That's another thing. Depth is not how many guys you have. It's how many guys you feel comfortable putting in. You can have 50 guys.
Yeah.
If you only have 4 guys you like, your depth isn't good enough. That's depth.
I want to get your opinion real quick. Obviously, Howie Roseman has to do his due diligence for this draft. But is that what's the message to your quarterback that, hey, I'm on television watching these 2 guys play? Like, are you basically telling your quarterback you're on borrowed time? Do you have a he has to go watch, right?
Yeah, but yes, and B, Hurts knows he's not guaranteed anything past the season.
Yeah.
He's not even guaranteed to finish the season. I'm sure he will, barring something highly unforeseen. But yeah, they don't know who their starter is past the season, and Roseman should be. I mean, it's not. I know other personnel people have told me they've seen him at games over the years, so it's not surprising. And he likes scouting. I've talked to him about that over the years, and he likes, he likes scouting. So yeah, I wouldn't read into it because anything with this team becomes news, and it's worth mentioning. I don't have a problem with it. You should if you see him in a game, sure, mention it, but it doesn't really mean anything. We've known. We mentioned the spring. It would be unlikely going to the season. Hurts will be their guy in 22. Nothing has changed. He's going to have to play lights out to even be in the conversation for next year. But there's time left. They're not letting him throw now because this is how they think they have to win or stay competitive. But there's time left. There's time. He's going to have to play lights out.
Right. For those of you out there, Howie Roseman was at the game last night. Pitt, North Carolina. Sam Howell, Kenny Pickett. Both guys projected to be some people think Pickett's the best quarterback in this draft right now. And I know it's a little early to start talking about all that stuff, but Howell some thought was going to be the number 1 overall pick at one point. I think he's kind of fallen out of favor. So that's where Roseman was last night watching those 2 guys. Yeah,
Kenny Pickett, Mike, has got small hands for a quarterback. In fact, I probably have bigger hands than he does. That's going to be an issue for personnel people. I've known about this for a year. One personnel guy said that he wears gloves because his hands are small. You'll notice if you really watch him, sometimes you see his hands with gloves on when it's warm out. It's because of his hand size. That'll be an issue, but he's athletic. He's a competitive kid. It on paper right now, unless a bunch of underclassmen declare, it's not on paper a good draft, but the jobs of general managers and personnel directors and scouts is to find those guys that you think you could build around.
All right, Adam Caplan, Eagles, Denver. How you feeling this week? You think they got 3 road wins?
I know. They fool me every week. I was going with the Chargers all week, and then when I saw who they were without 3 of their top 4 corners, I was like, all right, the Eagles were going to find a way to upset them. They almost did, obviously, but I'm picking Denver all the way. I felt that way. I'm not going to be changing this one. The matchups, even with Shermer not coaching, the matchups are just too good. Maybe this will help the Eagles a little bit. The Eagles have been somewhat competitive on the road, more than they have at home. But in the end, Broncos are clearly the better team.
All right, Adam Caplan, Inside the Birds podcast, wherever you get your podcasts. And, of course, check out InsideTheBirds.com. Mosher's back on Monday to recap Eagles, Broncos. They have their pregame show, 10 o'clock on the YouTube channel with the entire Inside the Birds crew. Check that out live on Sunday on the Inside the Birds YouTube channel. Adam Caplan, good to see you, my friend.
All right, man. Thank you.
All right, he's Adam Caplan, and, of course, he is Football at 4. We are halfway through the show, but we got so much more to go, including Nick Ferguson, the former Broncos safety. I want to ask him about secondary play in the NFL, how he sees this Eagles defense and the way they do things, as opposed to that team there. The strength of the Broncos defense, they got really good corners. Sports Bash Live, 97.3 ESPN. When I say they got good corners, I mean, you're looking at Kyle Ford, Ronald Darby. Now, Darby, we know here, he's not great. They're not a great physical corner. They did have Surtain. He's hurt. So the corners are still the strength of their team. Nate Harrison as well. We'll ask former Bronco Nick Ferguson about the defense that he sees in this game, plus the injuries. How big of a factor will they be? Former Bronco Nick Ferguson. He joins me next, plus Happy Hour Friday. Pete Thompson in about 20 minutes from now. Everybody, hope you're having a great Happy Hour Friday.
Sports Bash live now on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter. Search 97.3 ESPN or visit our website 973ESPN.com.
427, Nick Ferguson, the former Bronco, going to join us in just a second. Host on 104.3 The Fan in Denver. We'll check in with him on everything about this matchup, which, I think Sal said it earlier. If you still want the Eagles to make the playoffs, which a lot of people out there really don't, then this is a pretty big game. They've got to try to find a way to win this game. Couple of messages coming in over on the video stream. If you want to get your thoughts in, text 609-403-0973, 609-403-0973. We'll be catching up with Nick Ferguson in just a second here. I did see him in the video stream. He popped out of there, so he might be having a little bit of issue on the video stream. Josh is trying to connect with him, and we'll have him here on the Sports Bash, plus Pete Thompson for Happy Hour Friday coming up in just about 15 minutes from now. But one thing, keep in mind, the injury situation in Denver is a big one. I think this is a big situation for them, and they're coming off a pretty big win. They just beat Dallas pretty significantly. I mean, they crushed Dallas. They beat them up. And if you break down this game, coming off a pretty shocking win, the Broncos are welcoming an Eagles team that really needs this team. Well, both these teams are stuck right in the middle of the back end of the playoff race. So what are some of the big factors in this game? And I'm very intrigued. We talk about the corners and the safeties here in Philadelphia. They're playing them so deep off the ball. Denver's a team that seems to have a lot of trust in those guys and how that they run their defense so differently than Philadelphia does, the way that they basically put a lot in the lap of the Philadelphia defense. The Denver defense. Keep in mind, Denver has a 3-game home win streak in this series against Philadelphia, dating back to 1998. The Eagles have not been able to win here in Denver, and we talked about it on Wednesday's show with Mosher about how difficult it is in Denver. So let's bring Nick Ferguson into the conversation. As we know, the Eagles are not very good out in Denver. They have not won out there in a long, long time. But this one's interesting, Nick. Welcome back to the show, man. How you been?
Well, hopefully you can hear me. How is my audio?
I do hear you. Oh, I heard him, and then he just kind of trapped me off, threw me off. Maybe you give him a call and see if we can't jump him on the phone and have him nice and clear on the phone and have him be a part of the show quickly here. Hey, couple things on this. Denver 3-game win streak at home. With the win, Denver would sweep the division here. They have beaten Washington, they have beaten the Giants, and they have beaten Dallas already. One more game for Teddy Bridgewater was 70% or higher. He joins Peyton Manning as the only Bronco quarterback with 6 games in a single season. This is a perfect matchup that he would be able to do that. So I'm wondering, when I talk to Nick here, he's talking to Josh on the phone right now, so we'll pop him through. Teddy Bridgewater has to be licking his chops in this situation. He has to be licking his chops, understanding, hey, this Eagle defense. So, Nick, hey, can you hear me, man?
I got you, man.
All right,
Sorry about that.
That's all right, man. We got you loud and clear. I know you're a guy who played safety in this league. You've been in the secondary before. I don't know how much you've seen of the Philadelphia defense, but, man, if I'm Teddy Bridgewater this week, you've got to be licking your chops knowing that guys are completing 80%, 75% on the season, but 5 different times, 80% this defense has given up. Teddy Bridgewater has to be loving this.
Well, yeah, you go into this game and you're very optimistic as far as what you can do in the passing game. And the fact that we go back to the Cowboys game and we look at how successful Tim Patrick was as the 3rd wide receiver in the progression, and you still keep this in mind. I mean, when we look at Cortland Sutton, who was viewed as the number 1 receiver, he wasn't even involved in the passing game. So as we move forward, we look at, hey, yeah, the Broncos did a great job on the ground against the Cowboys, but we left a lot to be admired in the passing game, and that's something that they're going to definitely try to take advantage of Sunday against the Eagles defense.
Yeah, and I know that, this team last week ran the ball really well. So that's another area where the Eagles are very weak. They don't stop the run very well, and that's something that Denver excelled in last week.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, here's what I will say. Traditionally the Eagles don't excel in stopping the run, but last week they were able to hold the Chargers under 100 yards rushing, right? So that's something they can wave the banner, for and say, okay, well, we can take what we did against the Chargers in the game against the Denver Broncos. Maybe we would have success, but I'll add this to it as well. I mean, it just came out today that offensive coordinator Pat Shurmur, due to being placed on the COVID protocol list, he will not be available as a signal caller on Sunday. So that means there could be a little disarray with who's calling what plays. Is it going to be Curtis Markins who's called plays in this league, or will it be Mike Shula? So we all have to pay attention to it. But if I'm an Eagles fan, I just got a little bit of good news knowing that Pat Shurmur is not going to be at the helm.
Nick Ferguson, 104.3 The Fan in Denver, former Bronco as well. And Nick, tell us the injury situation out there and how that might play a factor in this game.
Well, we had a couple of guys injured going into the Cowboys game, and the reserves showed up well and showed up big time. But when we look at the right guard position, Graham Glasgow, he's expected to be out. Quinn Miners, he's going to fill in for him. Garrett Bowles, it's still uncertain whether he's going to play on Sunday. But if he doesn't, Calvin Anderson is going to play for him. And on the right tackle spot, Bobby Massey, he is most likely will be out. That means Cam Flemings will be in as well. And usually you look at that and say, well, the Broncos have issues on the offensive line. So defensively, we'll be able to take advantage of it. But I'll say pump your brakes on that, because these same guys who I'm talking about now, they receive quality minutes in the Cowboys game, and they play well. Now, Teddy was under a little pressure. He wasn't hit as though he was hit in previous games, but now this reserve unit has confidence that they can go and they can play with some of the most elite front sevens in this league.
Nick, obviously, Denver's got a defensive mind. Vic Fangio, a defensive-minded coordinator. Philadelphia has run the ball pretty exclusively, surprisingly, the last few weeks. So how's that matchup in your eyes?
Well, I said this today when I was on another show, and I'll tell you guys this. Once again, I will not underestimate this Eagles ground game, because to me, they got three options to run the ball. One, you got Boston Scott, who's a smaller kind of jitterbug type runner. And then also you got Jordan Howard, who's more of your big pounding between the tackles, the 4th and 1 and short goal line type of running backs. Then your other runner is your quarterback. And Jalen Hurts leads the Philadelphia Eagles with 492 yards on the ground. So it's not just thinking about trying to stop the running backs, but you got to find a way, if you're Vic Fangio and your defense, to make sure that Jalen Hurts doesn't hurt you with his legs, because we know he can hurt you with his arm.
Yeah, and I know that Devonta Smith is starting to kind of get there, but I want to kind of pick your brain on the tight end, because I don't think the Eagles use Goddard enough. I think he could be a bigger part of the offense, and how Denver defends the pass game with the tight end. Would that be a matchup that would be a concern this week?
Well, not a huge concern. Now, and I guess a couple of games back when we had Josie Gill and Alexander Johnson at the linebacker position, I would say yes and agree with you. But now there's been some changes due to injury. Baron Browning, who was drafted this year, George Payton did a great job with that draft selection, and Kenny Young, who they picked up from the Rams. Now we have more fast, athletic guys at the linebacker position that allows us to be able to cover those tight ends. So if Dallas Goedert wants to kind of make sure that this is a game, and let's talk fantasy points for a second here. If he wants to get over 10 fantasy points, now we're talking about working outside the numbers. Now you work over the middle, between the hashes, behind the linebackers, in front of the safeties. But for me to take advantage of what I've seen in this Vic Fangio defense, you want to work the short intermediate routes, and you also want to work those corner routes outside, because the corners don't really sink the way they need to sink. So if the Eagles want to have an opportunity in the passing game, that's the areas that I would attack.
Hey, we're talking with Nick Ferguson, former Bronco, host on 104.3 The Fan in Denver. There's a lot of weapons on this team, as we kind of chronicled Teddy Bridgewater. And who's the guy this week that you think is the guy that gets going against Philadelphia? Because this team only scores 20 points a game. When I watch Denver, I keep saying, man, they got all these weapons. They only score 20 points a game. So for that to kind of, last week they ran the ball. What's their method this week against Philly? Doesn't stop anybody on defense, but where they have done well, is in games against teams that have weaker offensive lines and whose quarterbacks are you would put in that second tier class. I mean, they got blitzed by Mahomes. They got blasted by Brady. Prescott crushed them. Dak Prescott. I mean, not Prescott. Well, Prescott too. Herbert last week completed 85. Anybody that's been a half decent quarterback has absolutely killed them. But they have hung in there against the guys who are not considered the top tier quarterbacks. So what's the success? What's the blueprint for Denver's offense this week?
Well, the blueprint would be first and foremost, take away the run game, because the ground game sets up, the boot keep action and play action, and force them to play with one hand tied behind their back. And here's what I would do to the Broncos, I'll say maligned offensive line, even though some of those guys have gotten some playing time this season. I would try to mix things up to confuse the guys up front. Now, you're not going to really confuse Teddy Bridgewater that much because he's a seasoned vet and he's not up in that upper echelon of quarterbacks, but he's more than capable. So it's going to come down to running a couple of game stunts inside, maybe some TE stunts on the outside. That what I mean by that, you got the end crashing in, the tackle going out, doing something to kind of disrupt the chemistry and the communication with that offensive line, because when you have guys playing, and even though they have not played together alongside one another a long period of time, the communication, you're not going to get that in a matter of weeks or just a week of practice. So try to confuse them in that way. Maybe you can get to a quarterback bat some balls down, or you can put pressure on Teddy, because that's one thing that we have seen all season long. Teddy has taken some shots. And if you want to make sure that another way you can make sure you win this game is get Teddy out of the game and get to Drew Lock, because Drew Lock is a turnover machine.
Now, you played in the secondary. If you were playing in the Eagles secondary, would you be sitting down with John Gannon and saying, hey, man, we got to do something different?
Absolutely. I mean, here's the one thing I know about playing in this game and coaching in this league as well. At some point, teams are going to catch up to what you're doing, because every team gets the film. If they have enough time to go through it, dissect it, see what you're doing on first down, see what you're doing on third down from a scheme standpoint, a personnel standpoint, they'll be able to find, opportunities in the run game and opportunities in the passing game. So we just have to kind of mix things up. Give you an idea. If I know we're going to run cover two as our base defense, what I mean by that, you're playing two high safeties. What I want my corners to do from time to time is at their disposal, roll down and make it look like they're playing man coverage. Anything you can do to make the quarterback hold on to the ball for maybe a half a second, giving our linebackers and our front pressures time to get there. But you just can't stand out there giving pre-snap reads to the quarterback so he knows, oh, okay, I know what defense they're in. I know where to go with the ball. And once again, looking at the secondary for the Eagles, I mean, 350 yards in the passing game last week to the Chargers. And when I look at the Chargers' skilled players, I don't think they're as good as the Broncos' skilled players, but you still have to go out and execute as well.
Yeah, and I don't know. I mean, Nelson. I mean, Slay's really good. Nelson, solid. I mean, he's a professional. I would be putting a lot more on their laps, right? I mean, it feels like they don't put enough in their lap. They're asking their linebackers, who are just okay. I think they're putting way too much in the linebackers' lap, not enough in their better players' laps.
Well, what you want to do with your linebackers is your linebackers or your quarterbacks or your defense. Those are the guys that you want to get downhill versus a superior run game. You want those guys also to get everyone lined up in the passing game, but you don't want to have to rely on them too much. This is a team sport. I always tell people this is not golf where it's you versus the course. It is a team sport. Every man relying on the other guy to do his job. So we now have to mix up our coverages. We have to make sure that we know where our help is, because if you know where your help is as a linebacker or a corner, you can start cheating a little. You can start playing that game with the quarterback, or as we say, the game within the game. But if you don't have confidence in the play calling, you don't understand the why as a player. Why are we doing this on this particular down versus this personnel? It's going to make any play. I don't care who you're playing with, for the Broncos or the Eagles, it's going to make it really difficult for you to do your job.
Nick Ferguson, always good to catch up with him. It's Eagles-Broncos this Sunday right here on 97.3 ESPN. The pregame coverage starts at 3, Merrill and Mike at 4:25. You can hear it right here on 97.3. Nick, always a pleasure, my man. Catch you soon.
I appreciate it. Thanks for having me.
That's Nick Ferguson, former Bronco host on 104.3 The Fan in Denver. And he gives us the lowdown there. Yeah, he said the same thing. Yeah, I'd be having a conversation with John Gannon if that was the case. Hey, when we come back, Pete Thompson's here for Happy Hour Friday. Don't go away. Sports Bash Live. Who's the PT like this week? Also, PT texted me the other night during the Sixer game. Said he was sleeping. Then he woke up. Odd situation. Back with more Sports Bash, 97.3 ESPN. Don't forget this hour of the show brought to you by PropSwap, America's sports betting marketplace. Find out how you can sell your sports bets and take your profit at PropSwap.com. Download the PropSwap app today.
Chickies and Pete's, your favorite local sports bar, home of the best in-game experience. Go where the players go. Catch all the action at all Chickies and Pete's all season long. Live football shows and Eagles pep rallies in South Philly. Every Monday, the Brandon Graham Show. Plus the Chickies and Pete's Players Lounge with Miles Sanders or Darius Slay. Chickies and Pete's is a proud partner of the Philadelphia Eagles and the official caterer of Eagles training camp and the First Trust Bank Club at Lincoln Financial Field. Go where the players go. Head to chickiesandpete's.com for the full schedule. College football Saturdays at Chickies and Pete are on. Chickies and Pete's, your favorite local sports bar. Enjoy the college football $5 game day menu every Saturday starting at 11 a.m. World famous crab fries, tasty roast pork sandwiches, Chickies boneless wings, and more. Plus Coors Light and Blue Moon ice cold draft beer specials every college football Saturday at all Chickies and Pete's. Chickies and Pete's is a proud partner of the Philadelphia Eagles and the official caterer of Eagles training camp and the First Trust Bank Club at Lincoln Financial Field.
What's the payments on this new car? Okay, well, what's my trade worth? You know what? I'm going to Matt Black Kia, where I can get some straight talk.
Put zero down, pay zero interest for 60 months. We're talking real turkey. Bring us any trade, no matter if it's roasted or overdone. Stuck in a loan or lease? Matt Blatt Kia can get you released. We want to approve you today. Choose from the largest selection of certified pre-owned Kias at mattblattkia.com and drive away in a new Kia with zero down and zero interest for 60 months on every 2022 Kia Stinger, or make no payments until next year.
It's gotta be a Matt Black Kia.
Offers with approved Tier 1 and 2 credit through Kia Motors Finance. Not all will qualify. 0% based on 1667 for 1,000 borrowed. Negative equity finance into new loan. Excludes taxes, title, license. Offers don't combine. Call 877-289-6670 or go to mattblattkia.com for complete details. Expires 12/3/2021.
Matt Blatt Kia, 6211 Black Horse Pike, Egg Harbor Township.
And now on Route 37 in Toms River.
It's game time. Football season is in full swing, and you can catch all the NFL action at the FanDuel Sportsbook in Bally's Hotel and Casino, Atlantic City. It's time to get in on all the games you love. Experience sports betting done right with live streaming games, food and beverage, self-service betting kiosks, and more. Get your game face on and score big this weekend when you bet at FanDuel Sportsbook in Bally's off the boardwalk, Atlantic City. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER.
447 Sports Bash. Don't forget another chance for you to qualify for 99 bottles coming up. That party, 99 bottles, is going to be happening November 24th. Vagabond Kitchen and Tap House. It is Happy Hour Friday with the PT. Pete Thompson is here for Happy Hour Friday. Hi, Peter.
Hello, MG. How are you, buddy? Happy Hour Friday. Woo-hoo.
Happy Hour Friday. People are revved up, ready to go. Happy Hour Friday. Everybody's in the mix. Woo. All right, PT.
So,
Eagles Broncos. We were just talking to your friend Nick Ferguson.
I love Nick Ferguson. Very good guy. Definitely knows what he's talking about as far as football. I mean, the guy played the game, right? We just talk about the game. Although, did you play for like Ventnor Pirates or something way back when?
I played some football,
high school level too.
I did play a little bit of high school football.
Yeah. Remember where I was at all the high school football games?
I'm not like Schweimer, though, because I played at some level of high school.
Schweimer acts like he was the Baldinger of Collingswood, you know? He was,
right.
Well, he was trucking people on the line.
What's the cutoff of, like, I played the game to where, like, I don't say because I played high school football that, like, puts me in a position, like, you know.
I mean, the one
Yes, I did play some football.
I think like baseball is your one thing that I feel like you have a little bit more acumen than the average Joe because you both played it and coach it. So that one I feel like you have an edge on.
Right, but my playing only really goes up to a certain...
So far, yeah. I mean, look, I stopped playing baseball at 14, right? I stopped playing... I mean, I played hockey in high school, but that doesn't make me an expert. I don't see this game the same way that Steve Coates does, for example.
Exactly, right? Exactly. Right. All right, Pete Thompson, we got like 5 minutes here because we ran a little late this hour. So I want to hit... I want to go quick on... So, by the way, you like the graphics here?
I do. It's very neon, right? The Happy Hour Friday up there, a little suds and duds, right? You got the duds, little purple shirt on, and it's a purple theme, purple pink, I guess, you know?
It's actually like a deep maroon.
Oh, you're wearing a deep maroon?
Yes.
What do you have, like a filter on or
My
something?
girlfriend says to me, like, she's like, you with the maroon. And it's like, and obviously the team that I coach, we wear maroon, but that's not why. That's not why. See, I told you about the pants that I have.
Oh, yeah.
And the pants are a navy blue, and it's a very difficult color to match.
Well, I wore an Eagle shirt today because, generally speaking, I can't wear one on Monday if they lose.
Well,
I don't think they're going to win.
You wear a lot of blue slacks.
I basically have two slacks, blue and khaki.
Well, what do you wear with the blue? What do you wear with the blue? See, you're a guy, though. You'll wear like a bright orange. Like, I can't go orange.
I don't have orange anymore in my wardrobe, although I'd like to once again. You know, I guess I have orange shoulders on the Flyer shirt, but like I'll wear a red with the navy slack. I will wear a gray. I will wear you could wear, basically red and gray. And I think I have one other. Oh, maroon. Yeah, a lot of maroon.
Right. That's why I had to incorporate, like, this is a new maroon shirt because
it really looks purple. I can't get over how much it looks purple.
I got blue pants on.
Yeah, that does not look maroon. Somebody
I said
on the
it's a
StreamYard.
deep. It's a deep maroon.
I think you're colorblind, but anyhow.
Josh, well, the person I bought it from told me it was maroon.
Right, and it came in. It's Adidas. It's a nice shirt.
Very nice.
All right. Now what are we down to? 3 minutes?
3:48. All right. Sports Pass Live 97.3 ESPN. Last week, Eagles were in that game, and then the defense decided that we don't want to be in this game. So do you have faith? Nick Sirianni, we wondered, was he going to change? He has changed. Now, will he do it for a third straight week? I don't know. But will John Gannon finally change?
Yeah, I think Nick has changed, and I was just looking over that bird's eye view they send out on Fridays, and it says the Eagles have rushed for 100-plus yards in 4 straight games and tied for the third longest active streak in the NFL behind Chicago and New England. And I was like, oh, wow, that signals a change to me. And the fact when you look up their statistics where they rank, I couldn't, like, I had to look closer and make it bigger. Right now, the Eagles are currently tied for 6th in rush offense in the league. You know, the team that we were yelling at to run the ball more, in the top 10, almost into the top 5 of running the football. So does Gannon change? Yeah, I don't necessarily think he changes, quite frankly. I think he thinks what he's doing is working, and I don't know how he can see that, but I know there was some personnel that went out. Slay went out. Maddox got hurt, but
Right,
look,
because I get the blitz notes from Sal Pal every Tuesday.
right.
They blitzed more this past week than any other week, and they were doing a good job in the first half. But it kind of coincided with when Slay and Maddox left the game that he.
But did you watch like last night's game at all between Miami and the Ravens?
After the Sixers game was over, I went to the football game. Actually, the college game was a lot more entertaining. But go ahead.
The Pitt, North Carolina game?
Yes.
I know how you feel about Pitt, but don't say that. So here's the deal. I watched a lot of that game between the Ravens and the Dolphins, and I felt like both quarterbacks were overwhelmed at times by the blitz. I don't think Lamar Jackson did a good enough job of reading it or recognizing it.
Well, John Harbaugh said today that he admitted that they were not prepared.
There you go. And Miami took them by surprise.
Right.
Yeah.
They essentially said we went into that game, we were not prepared enough.
Wouldn't you love to see that with the Philadelphia Eagles? But you're never going to see that. The philosophy is still the same. They want the front four to get home. They're rarely going to blitz. And if they do blitz, you feel like they're going to get burned. So, yeah, no. Do I have faith? Do I have optimism? No, I don't have a lot of faith or optimism. That said, they've surprised me on the road before. I didn't expect them to go to Carolina and win. They've been successful on the road so far this season. That's where all their wins have come, right? So who knows? I'm not picking them, but who knows?
All right, we've got about a minute left here, PT. So break it down for me. Who are you picking?
I'm picking Denver in this one. I think, they were very impressive against Dallas. Nobody saw that coming. I think that Teddy Bridgewater, he's the 3rd most accurate passer in the league at 70%. Well, he's got to be licking his chops because you know what? I get that he's not Tom Brady, and I get that he's not Pat Mahomes or maybe even Derek Carr. But you know what? The Eagles so far this season have made average quarterbacks look like Hall of Famers and Hall of Famers look like Mount Rushmore, right? So I think that Bridgewater is a good day. I think, they got a good running game last week from that Javonte Williams, their rookie. So, who knows? I mean, the Eagles have been better against the run, but who knows if they're able to stop the run in this one. I just feel like it's tough to go to Denver and win in Denver. I don't think the stats lead that way. So I've got the Eagles winning this or losing this one. Excuse me. I got Denver winning 27-21.
27-21 for the PT. They'll break it more down on Sunday's edition of The Locker Room, where Pete Thompson and Billy Schweim. He's got like Mike Reichenbach coming on this week.
Yeah, Reichenbach telling some Buddy Ryan stories.
Number
right?
55 in the middle of that defense.
All right, and former Eagle Brad Quast, right?
I played golf with Brad.
Yeah, you met him at the golf tournament.
He was part of our
foursome.
He
was quaffing more than he was quaffing.
He had a great head of hair. That's one. 2, we both had the same pair of pants on. His were black. Mine were the navy.
That's funny. These are the things that you remember.
Oh, yeah. The guy had a great shoe and a great do.
Now, at some point here, you're going to talk to Jeff Kerr today, right? Will you please give him props from me for nailing the perfect score?
I will.
Tell him that he wins the diamonds from you.
Okay.
That was an old thing from years ago, but yeah.
Pete Thompson, Happy Hour Friday. Nice graphic there, Pete Thompson.
Yeah, it looks great, man. I'm going to tip that sud right now.
All right, Sports Bash Live, 97.3 ESPN, the free mobile app. Peter, we will converge. We will reconvene. We will reconvene on Tuesday.
Sounds good, buddy. Look forward to it.
All right, that's Pete Thompson. Hey, it's your chance to qualify for 99 bottles right now. All right, there's your chance right now to enter to win a pair of tickets for Eagles, Flyers, Sixers, you name it. We got them at this year's 99 Bottles Party, 609-573-3776, 609-573-3776. Good luck. We'll see you at Vagabond Kitchen and Tap House for all our qualifiers for 99 bottles.
Hi, Tom McAllister from McAllister the Service Company. The votes are in and the readers have spoken. I'm extremely proud to announce that McAllister has been chosen for the 5th year in a row the winner of the prestigious Best of the Press Award for the best heating and air conditioning contractor and best customer service. None of this would not be possible without the commitment from the great men and women who care so much about our customers and this fabulous organization. These awards are a true testament of the McAllister commitment to excellence that continues the legacy that my great-grandfather started over 145 years ago. Whether in your home or business, you can count on McAllister to provide our award-winning 5-star service, all backed by our 100% satisfaction guarantee. Call us at 609-927-4122 or visit us at mcservice.com. We can't control the weather, but we can control your comfort.
I'm not saying you have to love football. We all have different likes and dislikes, people. Personally, I'm not a fan of the avocado. I just don't like the mouthfeel. But if you're someone who loves football, I mean, truly loves it well, my sportsbook app might be the greatest thing that has ever happened to you.
Must be 21. Gambling problem? New Jersey and Pennsylvania. If you or someone you know has a gambling problem, call 1-800-GAMBLER. In New York, call 877-8-HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY.
With GMF approval excludes Corvette.
Before you sell or trade your vehicle, you should go to Bennett Chevy and get the most for your trade. This month, Bennett Chevy starts the bidding on trades at $7,000. Yes, Bennett will give you a minimum $7,000 for any old clunker you can push, pull, or tow towards any pre-owned vehicle in stock. And remember, we'll buy yours even if you don't buy ours. And if we start at $7,000 for junk, how much more do you think we'll pay for a good running vehicle? Grab your title or payment book and get the absolute most for your your trade today. Want a brand new vehicle? While others are charging a fortune for new vehicles, Bennett still rejects any opportunity to charge 1 penny over MSRP. Stuck in a lease? Bennett can get you out early, all makes and models. So come see what your vehicle's worth today at Bennett, where there's absolutely no obligation and no pressure, because our non-commissioned sales staff is paid based on your satisfaction, not how much you spend. Find new roads at Bennett Chevy, Egg Harbor Township, and BennettChevy.com.
This is the Sports Bash with Mike Gill on 97.3 ESPN. Now, live inside the Matt Black Kia Studios, here's Mike Gill.
Final hour of the show, but it might be our best. We got one thought. Portion of it. The double-digit weeks are here. And we take a look at all of the week 10 action. Casey Joyner, one thought every game, plus a look at the Eagles and the Broncos, who will play in Denver this weekend, right here on 97.3 ESPN. So let's bring in Casey Joyner from The Athletic and the Philadelphia Inquirer as we take a look at each and every game this week with a little extra look at the Eagles and the Broncos this week. Casey, how we doing?
Doing pretty well. I survived that clunker of a game last night.
Wow, that was what a game plan by Miami. I mean, hey, give them credit. I said yesterday I had a feeling I liked Miami to cover. I didn't say they were going to win the game, but I just like it going down there midweek. Miami, there's something weird about going down there. They absolutely dominated the game last night. We have seen a lot of upsets in recent weeks here, so anything can happen, as we know, right?
And we saw the greatest play in NFL history that wasn't. That offensive lineman catches a touchdown.
I'll tell you what, did it not look like that guy was just like, the hell with it, I'm just catching this ball? Like, he was turned and like, give it to me.
We all thought it had to be a tackle eligible, and I thought a tackle eligible screen for a touchdown, that's the greatest play in NFL history. And it's like, nah, he's just a guard. He just they need to put it in there, though. Hey, put the tackle eligible screen to that guy because he's got some hands to him.
It was priceless. Let's look at this Eagles-Broncos matchup a little bit. I know in the Inquirer this week you wrote about the Eagles' defensive scheme and Jonathan Gannon. We've had so much conversation. Is it the scheme? Is it the personnel? Does he not have good enough talent? He was highly regarded when he got hired. Now people want him out. So when you took a closer look at the Eagles' defense under John Gannon, what are we seeing? Scheme, personnel, a mixture of the two. What do you see?
Well, the one thing I see that really, really, really bothers me is the Eagles now running the ball on offense, right? I cover this in the article. The Eagles have rushed for 175 yards in 2 straight games. Only the 6th team to do that this year, rush for that many yards in consecutive games. So you should be able to protect your defense. And yet in last week's contest, they get this metric, per stat head, since the AFL-NFL merger in 1970, only 54 teams have been able to post a 300-plus yard passing game, 80+% completion rate, while throwing the ball 35 or more times. That's what the Chargers did on Sunday, and none of the other teams did it while the opponent rushed for 39 or more rush attempts. So this is a historically bad performance, and it's all on short passes. Over the last 4 weeks, they've allowed the Eagles have an 88.7% completion rate on short passes. Almost 90%. I mean, some of those are going to have obviously been drops. You're barely stopping maybe 1 out of 15, 1 out of 20 passes with coverage. Everything else is being completed or dropped. That's an incredibly bad rate. You can't just sit there and play cover 2 shell and say, we're going to let them complete everything underneath us. If they're completing it at this rate, you've got to come up and do something more ambitious and aggressive to stop it. So I am blaming scheme.
If that's what he's doing, why does he do it? Who does he not trust? What is his concern if he's saying, this is why I'm playing cover 2? What is his message to someone to say, I'm playing cover 2 because what's the answer?
They've got one of the lowest vertical pass rate totals per game against him. That's why. I think he doesn't either trust his safeties or his corners or both in vertical coverage to say, I don't think you can stop them.
Corners his best players?
Yes, exactly. I couldn't understand why you wouldn't trust them. That should be who you would trust, but they don't trust them to stop vertical passes. And I do not get it. It's the only reason you sit back that much is they were going to stop vertical passes. I kind of got it when they did against Kansas City, when Kansas City was still before they had the recent struggles. I got it a bit like, okay, you tried that. It didn't work, but I can understand it. But I mean, come on, you can't do that against everybody in the league. I mean, you just a couple of offenses you want to do that against, and I get that. The Chargers played a cover 2 shell, and they're better doing it. The Chargers have more talent than you do, and the Chargers come up and stop the short passes too, at least better than the Eagles are. So they just need to be. We keep coming back to this. They just are not playing aggressively on defense. Love what they're doing on offense, but on defense, they're just not being aggressive enough to try to stop these plays because you can't just give up things because teams are going to dink and dunk away their touchdowns.
They don't stop the run very well. They don't have very good linebackers. Last week, Denver said to Dallas, "Hey, we're just going to run it at you. Have a hat. Here it comes. Do what you can." They couldn't stop them. As if you're Denver, is that what you do again this week? Or do you let Teddy Bridgewater pass his way down the field at 85%? Because there's one thing that Bridgewater likes to do. He's very accurate. He might not take a lot of shots down the field, but this seems like almost a perfect defense for him.
And he's got Judy, and he's got Patrick, and he's got Fant, and he's got Sutton. He's got a lot of talented receivers. And we say, fine, we're going to run high, low, or inside-out combinations, and you go to the low guy, or you go to the whatever guy is not covered on the inside-outs, just a dink and dunks. If that's what the Eagles are going to sit back and play, go ahead and do it. And yeah, if the Eagles invite you to run, if you're Denver all season long, they've had that 1-2 combination or we're running the ball. They'll keep doing that. And Melvin Gordon's better than people give him credit for. I mean, they'll keep doing that sort of ground game. So yeah, they'll absolutely take the Eagles up. And the Eagles are trying to do what they call a run funnel, where they sit back and they do that cover 2 shell and say, go ahead and run us. Denver will do it. So if you're Philadelphia, I don't know, do you try and come up and play cover 3 and put the extra guy in the box? That really doesn't stop the ground game, to be honest. I mean, I've done some studies and it helps, but it's not a panacea. You really just have to go defeat blocks. And I just think they've got to stop being so passive on defense and just be aggressive up front. You've got one gap players, go ahead and do that and get your defenders to play press coverage. Look what Miami did last night. I mean, they play all press coverage and all blitzes and get really aggressive, and they beat an offense that was much better than their defense was. So maybe Gannon hopefully was watching on Thursday night.
Well, and the Eagles don't like to blitz all that much. You wonder, Casey, if when Slay and Maddox went out, he was a little bit more aggressive last week, and then when they got hurt, he kind of pulled back. It seemed like anyway.
I get that, but at the same time, funny thing is, if you're playing, this is the odd part. If you're playing cover 3, like if you're playing one safety back and you're playing cover 3, your corners will normally be about 7 yards off, and they'll give up the short passes. So you'd think that's when they give up short passes. When you're playing cover 2, your corners are supposed to be able to come up and play a little bit tighter against the short passes. So you do stop the long passes. You're supposed to be stopping the short stuff, and you're supposed to be able to beat it with corner routes and things of that nature. But I think the Eagles are just playing that soft and giving up too many things. It's not just on hitch routes and things on the outside. They're going on slants and other passes too. But I just think they have to just clamp up harder and say, fine, look, if I'm Denver, I'm challenging Teddy Bridgewater. Can you beat me over the top? I know you've got good receivers, but I still don't trust. I trust that you're not as good at your vertical game as you are your short game. And fine, if you have some injuries in the secondary, then maybe you play some coverage. But you got to mix some other things in. I get being beat sometimes, but when you're allowing 88.7% completion on short passes over a 4-game span, not just this is a 4-game span, you're doing something wrong.
Yep. Let's go to the other side of the ball. They've run the ball very successfully against Los Angeles and Detroit. Different animal this week?
No. Why would you make them stop you? It's what you do well. You've got a great running quarterback. You have the makings, and once the standards get healthy, of 4 quality running backs. I know you've got some good receivers and such. You could still do some things there. You could do RPOs. You could do some things there, but they're pretty good in the secondary too. Denver is. So no, I'm still trying to run the football. I think that they should be able to have some success with that over the past since week 6. Denver's allowed 416 yards on 85 carries to running backs. It's 4.9 yards per carry. They're about a little below average in that category. So I think that they're not going to be as, I don't think that Denver has a shutdown run defense. I think they'll have the shutdown pass defense, but you still can run the ball against these guys.
Where is the weakness? Where do you see the matchup on? I mean, Philly's obviously got their offensive line. I would imagine that's the strength of their team. Yep. Do you run behind the line? And if you are going to throw the ball, where's there the matchup that you can go after? Because Denver's got a pretty good secondary.
Denver does have a good secondary. They're okay against vertical passes. I think that you could do well against the vertical passing. They're not great against vertical passes, but if I had to go on an individual basis and say who I think they should go after, I would probably say Darby, or it looks like Nate Harrison will be their nickel cornerback. Those would be two guys I have as yellow rated in coverage. I want to stay away from Kyle Fuller. They'll probably put him on Smith, I would imagine. That's a matchup I do not like at all. And I don't like the tight end matchup, Dallas Goedert versus Kareem Jackson. I don't like that matchup at all. The Broncos have really done a good job at slowing down tight ends. So I'm wanting to get Rager and Watkins probably involved in the passing game as much as I can, which is not, they aren't high percentage guys, but you don't need a lot of high percentage plays if you can move the ball on the ground.
Hey, one other area, Casey, where Philly has won their games is because they face teams who have lesser offensive lines. They got Atlanta, Carolina, the Chargers. They're the team, or not the who was the other team they beat? Detroit.
Yeah,
those teams don't have very good offensive lines. The Eagles' defensive front against the Chargers' offensive line. Where do you see that matchup?
The Broncos could be missing. What is it? They're going to be missing starters in this matchup. I think it'll be down to 3. Yeah, it could be down exactly. I mean, it's 3 starters in this matchup. That is a big plus for the Eagles, which is why I keep talking about being in the running game and things. I'd love to see them get a lead and force Teddy Bridgewater to pass, because then maybe you take away the short stuff and try and get him to throw deep, and then you can try and get after him. Plus, the injuries are up the gut too. The Glasgow is one of their guards got hurt. I mean, they've got some in between injuries, tackles the guards in the center. They've got injuries there, so I think you can get some up the gut pressure. It's a game where Fletcher Cox, I mean, this should be a ready-made, tailor-made matchup for you. And I'd like to say, go ahead, be your old self. You want to be as aggressive as you want to be, go ahead, because you can be a disrupt in this game. And all he has to do, if he disrupts just a few running plays and can be his usual self against the pass when you give him a good matchup, if he can do that, he by himself could probably hinder a couple of 3 drives for Denver, probably shut down a quarter of their offense.
All right, Casey Joyner, one thought every game. We'll get back to that Eagles game and get your ultimate matchup there. But let's take a look at the week number 10 schedule. Actually, week 10 schedule here. We're in the double digits. It's one thought every game. Let's go to Dallas, where the Cowboys got rocked last week. Atlanta's coming off a big upset win over the Saints. Have Atlanta found their groove?
I thought Arthur Smith would have a good chance to be the coach of the year coming into this season, because we look at their schedule and you look at their matchups and it said, okay, if they were in playoff contention, it would put him in contention for that, and I think they can be. Problem is, the thing is going to come down to Dak Prescott's effectiveness. Cowboys were playing a record-setting pace earlier, and now he's not playing quite as well. I happen to think, though, that he's going to play better this week. I think there's a couple factors pointing in that direction, and I just don't trust Atlanta's consistency. It's at Dallas. So I think Dallas bounce back.
All right, another game that has playoff implications in the NFC. Tennessee, fresh off a big road win in L.A. against the Rams. Now they've got a team who had a bad loss last week at home in New Orleans, who now has to go on the road.
Which game are we talking? My apologies.
We're talking New Orleans, Tennessee.
New Orleans, Tennessee. Thank you. Anyone who thought the loss of Derrick Henry would cripple the Titans' offense, it caused Tennessee's collapse. Well, they got a rude awakening last week. The Titans beat the Rams by 28-16 score, and they played power football on both sides of the ball. They dominated the line of scrimmage on both sides of the ball. Matthew Stafford made some errors, but that wasn't a fluky win. That was Tennessee actually dominating that contest. Trevor Simeon is not anywhere near what they had at quarter, what James Winston was. Kamara's going to be out. When you add those elements to being in Tennessee, I'll take Titans.
All right, Jacksonville got a win last week against Buffalo. They're taking on Indianapolis. Indy kind of needs this win if they want to stick around this very crowded AFC playoff race.
I think they're probably going to get it, because the Jaguars, they held the Bills to 3-1 offensive yards and 6 points. They got 3 takeaways. The problem is Buffalo had a trap game last week. They were in between divisional matchups, and they were on a road game against a team that was better than they thought and a team they could easily underestimate. You could see that was the case. Colts aren't going to take the Jaguars lightly. It's an in-division foe. It's in Indianapolis. The Colts also, they scored 30 more points in 4 straight games. They might have the best running back in the league right now, Jonathan Taylor. So I think they put up a lot of points and beat Jacksonville in what might be a shootout.
All right, another fun game, Cleveland at New England. It's the Patriots who now all of a sudden are in the playoff mix. Cleveland's got some COVID issues as well. So can the Browns shake that off and go to New England and get a win?
That's tough, because when you're missing who they're missing, and you never know if that's going to be, Chubb is already out. Looks like Demetric Felton, their pass catching back, is out. They've got some problems there, and their whole thing is about the running game, and now they're just down to Jonas Johnson. He had a good game a couple weeks ago, but it's still, if he's your back and you're facing Bill Belichick, I question if you'll be able to do that, because New England their offense is doing a lot better, but they've got some problems too. So I think that this could be this could be a high scoring game because of defensive touchdowns, but I still think that New England has probably got more paths to victory. I don't like them by a ton, but I'll take the Patriots.
All right, Buffalo has faced Miami, Jacksonville, and now the Jets. It's been kind of hard to get up for some of these games, I would imagine. Hence, they lost to Jacksonville. I can't imagine they're overlooking the Jets.
I can't imagine they're overlooking the Jets either. I mean, again, Mike White's a quarterback. I mean, how could you overlook the Jets? I mean, he's 405 yards for a start. The Jets defense has allowed 430 more yards before the last 5 games and 530 plus offensive yards in the past 3. So, I mean, the Jets defense has been terrible. New York has a chance to turn this game into a shootout. It's good for them. They don't have Zach Wilson under center. It's obvious their offense is nowhere near as good when he's there. But Buffalo's only given up 300 more offensive yards on 2 occasions. Their defense is still really strong. So I think they slow the Jets down and take this one.
One thought, every game, Detroit looking for their first win of the year. They're heading to Pittsburgh. All of a sudden, the Steelers are in the mix for the playoffs. Not only the playoffs, but the division.
Yeah, if they win this game, they're tied for first. I told my son that last night after the Baltimore game. I said, hey, because he's a big Steelers fan. Dan Campbell, he had his team playing really hard early in the season, and then they kind of hit the wall. We saw that happen against the Eagles. I think they just ran out of gas because you get so fired up for so much time. It's a perfect time for them to get a bye week. So I think they're going to play very hard in this matchup. And I won't be shocked if they pull off the upset because, as I've talked over the years, the Steelers have a tendency to Tomlin, which is where they don't play to their talent level of their opponent. They play down the talent level of their opponent. I don't think that'll be the case this week, though, because Pittsburgh is so desperate and they've come back from so far down that I think they'll win. But again, I wouldn't be surprised to see it be a 23-20 contest.
It's a rematch of the NFC wildcard game last year. Tampa has to go back to Washington. Washington, they almost won that game last year. Well, this team's a lot different. Tampa's now, of course, the Super Bowl champions. But Washington, it seems like their season has just gone off the rails, and I can't imagine they get it back on track against Tampa.
I can't imagine either. Taylor Heineke, he did what we expected Ryan Fitzpatrick to do. Ryan Fitzpatrick was going to come in. We figured early on Fitzmagic would come along and 4 or 5 good games and he run out of gas. Heineke did that. He did well for a few games, but they scored 13 or fewer points in 3 straight games. I mean, it's not a trap element here because the Bucs are coming out of their bye week and they don't face a divisional foe again until December. So I'm not worried about that kind of thing being an upset. The Bucs have scored 24 or more points in all but 1 game, tied 27 or more points in all but 2 contests, and they put up 381 offensive yards in every game. And Washington's defense is playing poorly. So I'll take Tampa.
All right, another interesting one with wild card implications in the NFC. Carolina is in the mix. Arizona playing for the 1 seed, and Arizona looks to get Murray back. Carolina just signed Cam Newton. I doubt he'll play on Sunday, but can they get a win with P.J. Walker?
P.J. Walker, they're wishing they could play Cam, and they're paying now 3 quarterbacks, Cam's replacement, and Cam's replacement. So that kind of not sensible for them. But Carolina, they got a lot of offensive problems. They're going to get McCaffrey back. He comes in this game without an injury designation, so that's good. But there's only so much that he could do, and you saw what Arizona did last week. Arizona people, they get the impression this Cliff Kingsbury offense is all vertical passing and all lots of throwing and all this. They run the ball a ton. They were top 10 in the league last year in rushing attempts. We saw what James Conner did last week. So even if they don't get Murray and Hopkins back, I still think they've got more than enough to win. And I think Murray and Hopkins will play. So I'll take Cardinals.
All right, up next, another game with playoff implications in the NFC and in the every game in the AFC has playoff implications. Every game in the NFC has like the number 7 spot implications this week. And you've got Minnesota at the Chargers. Now, we know the Chargers last week, they struggled against the run. Can Minnesota, do they commit to using Cook and Madison and really keep them in that game on the road?
They absolutely should, because that Brandon Staley cover 2 scheme that Jonathan Gannon seems to be mimicking. They've given up 142 or more rushing yards in 6 of the past 7 games and 176 or more rushing yards in 5 of those games. I mean, they're inviting teams to run. It's great to do that, but if you give up 176 yards on the ground in 5 of the 7, that's not good. And the Vikings will absolutely do that. But problem for the Vikings is their defensive woes have returned, because over the last 2 games, they've allowed 919 offensive yards and 54 points. They had problems early this year, I should say, all of last year, especially late. And I think their defense is starting to regress. I'll take the Chargers.
One thought every game. Here we go. Looking at another one in Seattle, Green Bay, and Rodgers, whether he plays or not, that's kind of up in the air. I would imagine he does. Seattle's going to get Wilson back. So this all of a sudden vaults up the list of intriguing games. Seattle, by the way, in the mix for the 7th seed.
They are. I did a spot earlier this morning. I do a gaming podcast for The Athletic, and Michael Beller, my co-host there, he pointed out that the bookmakers never took Green Bay off the board. So he figures that they figured that Rodgers is going to play. So if they figure he is, that he is. So I'll go with that and imagine that Rodgers is going to play in this contest. Seattle, I like Wilson coming back, but I see early this year, their defense played terrible, just like it did last year. The response last year in the defense played terrible to say we're going to run the ball and we're going to start protecting defense. They've done that when Wilson's out. I think they're going to do that when he comes back. And when he gets, if he does that and he's got any kind of rust, and he might because he's never had to come back from an injury, I'm looking at that and saying, okay, I just think Green Bay will be back to what it is. Better than Seattle be back to what it is. So I trust Green Bay more, but so many variables in this contest. I'll take Green Bay, but with a very low confidence level.
All right, one thought every game. Kansas City on the road. They're a favorite in this game, a road favorite at Vegas. And this Vegas team, they're coming off the loss of the Giants. I mean, what a weird game this is all of a sudden.
It is, and this is this was the toughest pick all week out of all the games. It was when I went back and forth on for thinking who I was going to win. Kansas City's beaten the Raiders 16 out of 19 times. I mean, they really dominated this series. I don't think that this is going to be where Las Vegas returns to controlling the rivalry, but they've racked up 400 more offensive yards on 6 occasions this year, including in the last 3 straight. Kansas City scored 20 or fewer points in 4 of the past 5 games. They've had 19 giveaways in that time frame. The problem for Vegas is the Chiefs defense has stepped up. So I'm looking at it going, I really think this is going to be a 24-23 style game. I'll take Vegas because they're at home, but it is truly a coin flip matchup.
Casey's back on Monday for one thought on every game. We'll look at the Rams and Niners, that Monday night game. But first, let's get the matchup that you're watching the most. Philadelphia, Denver. One thought, that game.
The matchup I'm going to watch the most is to see if Philadelphia keeps going with the ground game. After last week, I hope they don't say, well, it worked against Detroit, but it didn't work against Chargers, so we're just going to go ahead and switch back to the other mode. I hope they keep doing that. If they keep doing that, they get a good chance to win the game, and I like the matchup against Denver's offensive line. Having said that, Denver has a lot of talent, a lot of plays across their team. I think this is another toss-up game. I'll take Denver because they're at home, but I literally think this could be another one of those 24-23 matchups.
And by the way, Denver has just put out their injury report. Both Garrett Bowles and Bobby Massey have been ruled out due to ankle injuries. Calvin Anderson, he will get to start with Cameron Fleming. So there are your 2 tackles for the Broncos this week. So I guess, that changes things a little bit.
I may have to rethink the pick after looking at the injuries and seeing what happens over this, because it is one of those that goes either way. So that report coming in, that could change it. I could flip this to Philadelphia. I still think even with that, it's a very, very toss-up matchup, just because I want to. If I knew what the Eagles were going to do or had a good idea that they're going to stick with that run game approach, I would absolutely go with them. But the concern that they don't, and with Gannon still not playing the kind of defense that he should, that's the biggest concern for me. I think coaching is the bigger problem for them.
Okay, that's one thought every game. Casey Joyner, check out his work over at The Athletic, the Philadelphia Inquirer. He wrote a great piece on John Gannon and that whole scheme. You can check that out as well at KC Joyner, TFS. And, of course, he'll be back on Monday with one thought on every Week 10 game. All right, Casey, enjoy the football.
Appreciate it, man.
All right, there he is, Casey Joyner, right here on the Sports Bash Live on 97.3 ESPN, as we do it every Friday. And when we come back, well, there's the news. Both tackles are out for Denver. How does that change the matchup? Jeff Kerr, CBS Sports, will join me as he does on Friday nights right here. We'll talk football, a little shop. A lot going on in the NFL. His thoughts on Odell Beckham, his thoughts on Cam Newton, his thoughts on Week 10 in the NFL. And I got the list of teams you're rooting against this week, or who you're rooting for, I should say. I'll give you that coming up next with Jeff Kerr here on The Bash. Friday night, happy hour Friday, Sports Bash, 97.3 ESPN. Jeff Kerr, CBS Sports, going to join me, going to talk a little football. His appearance is brought to you by the expert solar team in New Jersey, EMT Solar, Roofing, Solar Guardian. Start your solar journey today. Learn more. Visit ESPNsolar.com. I'm Mike Gill, at Mike Gill Show on Twitter. Jeff Kerr, CBS Sports, set to join me right now as we can talk a little football Friday night. Love it. I love a little Friday night football. A big weekend here for the Birds if you still want to make the playoffs. We talked about this earlier with Sal Paolantonio. If you have any thoughts, Jeff, of making the playoffs, this is probably a pretty necessary win for them.
You got to win the next two, honestly, if they're thinking about making the playoffs in the NFC. Now, I know they don't have to, but I think you have to win the next two. I think you have to beat Denver. And look, Denver right now, they are in position. Well, I shouldn't say they're one of the playoff teams in the AFC right now, but they're in position. They're one.
Everybody's right there.
Yeah, exactly. There's 11 teams over 500 in the AFC, and you're going to Denver, where you haven't won since 1989. So this is going to be a big game for them. It would be a huge win for a team that seems to play well on the road.
Yeah.
Then you got the New Orleans Saints next week with Trevor Siemian at quarterback. And look, they are a playoff team right now in the NFC. And you do that, you get the 5-6. All of a sudden, things look a little bit more optimistic for this team going forward.
All right, let's go through. I said I wrote down the games here. These are the games that have factors for the playoff race in the NFC number 7 spot. Dallas, Atlanta. You got to go Dallas, right?
I'm picking Dallas this week. I think they have a bounce back game.
All right, you got New Orleans at Tennessee. I got to like Tennessee there.
Yeah, I think the Saints are a lot better than people think. But Tennessee, they're just on a roll right now, and they seem to be beating teams that are what's the word I'm looking for, Mike? They were playoff teams last year. And I don't know if you knew this or not, Mike. I tweeted about this the other day. If Tennessee beats the Saints Sunday, they matched the 2003 Philadelphia Eagles for the most consecutive wins against playoff teams from the previous season with 5.
All right, so that's a good omen there. You got Tampa Bay playing Washington. I mean, Washington's kind of out of this thing.
Yeah, I don't, I said Miami didn't have a shot at beating Baltimore last night. I was wrong, but Washington is not beating Tampa Bay.
I agree. Arizona, Carolina. Carolina right now is the 8th seed.
Cam Newton might be quarterback Sunday. I doubt.
Think?
No. He'll be the starting quarterback. I just don't think it'll be by Sunday.
I was going to say, geez.
I'm going to give it to Arizona.
Carolina is the 8th seed. They are 4-5. All right, so you like Arizona there.
They're desperate. If they have PJ Walker play the rest of the year, they're giving up on their season, bottom line.
Minnesota is playing the Chargers. Minnesota currently 3-5. They are the 9 seed.
This is going to be tough, but I think Chargers pull off this one. Minnesota, to me, they should have beat Baltimore on
Minnesota's path to victory is to run. I mean, Cook and Madison.
Yeah, you're right. And again, the Eagles ran the ball well against the Chargers last week. But Minnesota, to me, they just keep finding ways to lose, even though they shouldn't. And that's why they're 3-5. They should be a playoff team, but they're not right now.
Green Bay, Seattle. It looks like Rodgers will likely play. Seattle's 3-5. They are currently the 10 seed.
Seattle's getting Russell Wilson back. I think Seattle stuns America and upsets Green Bay. I think that's an upset.
And the last one that has some playoff implications would be the Rams on Monday night at San Francisco. San Francisco is currently 3-5. They are the 11th seed.
The Rams should not lose this game. I don't think they lose 2 in a row. I think they're too talented. So I'll go with the Rams.
All right. So everybody, you have every single team in the NFC race losing except for Seattle. So that would put Atlanta at 4-5, Carolina at 4-6, Minnesota at 3-6, San Francisco at 3-6. Seattle would go to 4-5, which kind of shows you, where Philadelphia is at 3-6. If they were to win this game, they would get to 4-6, and that would put them at 4-6. Boy, they would be basically, depending on how all these tiebreakers broke out, they could be as high as 9 at the end of the week.
I know the playoff talk kind of sounds ridiculous when you're in like a transition year, but this is what the NFC has presented us with. And if the Eagles want to make games meaningful in December. They have to win this week and they have to win next week. And they just have to find ways to stay alive. Because guess what? The schedule gets easier after New Orleans. It does. And it's getting easier now. Like Denver's a 5-4 football team. They're good.
Well, let's just talk about the news that came out with Denver, Jeff Kerr. The 2 starting linemen out for the game. Bowles is out. Bobby Matt is out. Both have been ruled out for the game.
Officially
How
out
does that
now.
change things? They are both officially out.
Well, I'll say this. The Eagles better get some pressure on Teddy Bridgewater, who, by the way, everybody wants to get on Jonathan Gannon right now, and I have done it. But this is a week you have to play zone coverage because Teddy Bridgewater, wait for this, Mike, is number 1 in completion percentage and number 1 in passer rating when he faces a man coverage defense. Think about that.
Well, I said, you joke that Teddy Bridgewater, he doesn't push the ball down the field all that much. He likes to kind of nickel and dime you down the field. John Gannon's defense would be just what the doctor ordered. I mean, he might complete 95% of his passes against this defense.
I have a feeling Jonathan Gannon won't be scared of Teddy Bridgewater. I think he blitzes him, and I think he makes Teddy Bridgewater beat them. Now, if Teddy Bridgewater rolls out of the pocket and completes a pass off him, so be it. If he beats him downfield, so be it. But I think Jonathan Gannon brings the house this week.
All right, what if Denver comes out and do what they did last week? I mean, they took the ball and just ran it down.
And they can do that.
Yep, they just turned around and handed it off and said, look, you can't stop us. Philadelphia don't stop the run.
No, they don't. And I think that's what they should do. And they should use a healthy dose of Melvin Gordon, who's a little banged up himself, and Javonte Williams, who, to me, is one of the better rookie running backs in this class. If it wasn't for Najee Harris, it would be him. So I'm looking at it as, Mike, I think they should go ground and pound and kind of take the pressure off their quarterback and say, you know what, Eagles defense, come beat us. But I think Jalen Hurts and Teddy Bridgewater are going to have to make plays. So this is a really good test for Jalen Hurts, for his fans and his haters right now, because Jalen Hurts is not good against man coverage, and Denver plays a lot of man coverage. He's worse against zone coverage, but this is a game where Jalen Hurts, I think, has to make plays with his arm. If he does that, the Eagles are going to win.
All right. One thing the Eagles have done a lot this week or last 2 weeks, run the ball. What's the recipe for running the ball? How's it look this week?
Well, Denver's run defense is a little bit better than the last 2, but I still think they should run the ball more. I still think they should give a conscientious effort toward the run, but I'd like to see Jalen Hurts throw a little bit more. I still say the Eagles should run the ball about 30 times and try to mix in play action, try to do all that. So I think if Nick Sirianni sticks to the formula that's helped him and kept them in games and winning games the last 2 weeks, I think he'll be okay.
All right. You put a stat up on your Twitter feed at Jeff Kerr, CBS. Opposing quarterbacks, 134 passer rating against the Eagles in man, no interceptions. In zone, 96.5 with 5 interceptions. So what's the what is the suggestion there?
Play zone? I mean, what else do I got to say? Everybody wants to rip on Jonathan Gannon for not playing man. Well, I just put the stats in front of you. Look, these guys are smarter than I am. I can be Monday morning quarterback all I want, but then when I go watch the film and look at the stats and break stuff down, there's a reason why the Eagles aren't doing what we think they should do. And I don't know, 96.5 looks a lot better than 134, don't you, Mike?
It does. It's a little bit of a surprising number. I mean, I guess coupled with they got to send more pressure. I mean, trying to get some pressure this week off the edges against these backup tackles, that's got to be the way you go. I love what Miami did last night. They disguised their blitzes really well. They put 6 in the box. They blitzed 5. They dropped 1 back. They didn't know which guy was coming from where. The offensive line had all sorts of problems for Baltimore last night.
Yeah, and that's a banged-up offensive line. And look, this is one of Brian Flores' best jobs. He sent more attackers against Lamar Jackson than anybody. And look, I had to hear those, your boy Lamar can't throw. I was like, I don't want to hear it. He's been throwing all year. Like, you're due to have bad games. By the way, Sammy Watkins, who's about as useless can be, should be catching passes in the end zone when Lamar Jackson throws them in his hands.
Jeff Kerr, CBS Sports.
I'm just saying.
Yeah, well, listen, I know there's been a lot of upsets this year. There's been a lot of strange things that have gone on. And Philadelphia is in a spot here where they've never won in Denver, or it's been a while. I think since '98 they haven't won a game there. Or even further back. So this is going to be a tough. 89. I was inverted there. This is a tough spot for them, but the tackles being out, Patrick Surtain is out. You got the linebacker issues there. Feels like this Denver team is there for the taking.
Yeah, and that's why, if Denver's at full strength, I don't think I pick the Eagles. I'm picking the Eagles this week because of Denver's injuries and because I have a feeling Jalen Hurts is going to rise to the challenge a bit. Jalen Hurts is like all of us. He gets tired of hearing what he can't do. Well, what about what he can do? I know Denver has done a really good job at stopping mobile quarterbacks this year. I don't think a quarterback should run for over 27 yards off that. I think Jalen Hurts breaks that streak. He has 4 straight games of running for 60 yards, Mike.
62 last week. Yep. And look, if they could run the ball, go back what they did last 2 weeks and just kind of feature that run somewhere along the line. I think you could take shots down the field on Ronald Darby. I would try to get Darby locked up in some one-on-one situations, try to take some shots down the field. I think you could take shots down the field on this secondary.
Mike, we kind of ignore this a bit. I know the quarterback isn't the most accurate quarterback in the world. Outside of Devonta Smith and Dallas Goedert, who is he really throwing to?
Oh, that's a great point. I mean, Watkins. I mean, look, he's had some.
Solid, don't get me wrong.
He's had some splash plays, but that's it. He's not a volume guy. And Rieger, I mean, he's not even really a part of the
offense. You and I have
anymore.
more receiving yards over the last 2 weeks than he does.
Right, he is not even a part of the game plan. It almost feels like anymore.
Yeah, it's almost like they're souring up on him. And look, I wouldn't be surprised if they use the first-round pick on a wide receiver next year to get this.
Oh, jeez.
But they really need a veteran in there more than anything else. They need to get veterans on that core. Bottom line.
Yeah, I mean, look, I don't want to get into a draft conversation, but they have got, like last night, they're watching Pickett and Howell. You can't be thinking about those guys right now. You have got to fix that defense.
You do. The defense, to me, is the biggest concern with the Philadelphia Eagles right now. I would even say wide receivers up there, too. I'll say this, Mike. I don't think Jalen Hurts is even close to the biggest problem in this football team. He might be 4th or 5th.
That's interesting. Yeah, I mean, to me, I'm very disappointed in Rieger. I'm disappointed that I'll tell you this. While I think Rieger is just an average guy at this point, I thought Sirianni would have done a better job with him. And when I say that, I don't think that they have utilized his skill set well enough. And part of the problem might be, look, when they're running the ball, they're running 13 personnel. He's not on the field. There is no role for him.
Exactly. When you run that 13 personnel, which they've been doing a lot of, like you said, he's useless. And he wants to run 11, but I just don't think he can. I think right now he's
Put it this way, Jeff. If Rieger was making plays, they'd run 11.
Exactly.
You know what I'm saying?
They don't have 3 wide receivers to run 11 personnel. That's really what's coming down.
No, but you know what, though? You almost say that Ward is more productive. Ward's on the field for 2 plays. He catches a touchdown. Like, Ward is almost has more of a purpose in an offense like this than Rieger does, because he runs good routes and he'll catch the damn ball. Rieger doesn't run good routes, and you don't know if he's going to catch the ball.
Yeah. Here's what I always look at, Mike, the chicken or the egg. Do you want to put Jalen Hurts in the best position to succeed and win football games, or do you want to play 11 personnel and have Jalen Rieger? I'd rather see Jalen Hurts play well. That's just me, though.
Well, right. And I mean, if you watch, I don't know what was your television habit last night? Were you going football, Sixers, college?
So I was at the Sixers game. I did not watch Baltimore-Miami until when I got home at around midnight or so. And then I watched that game. And then I kind of watched Pickett and Howell this morning. So I didn't have that rotation I normally do.
All right. So I was on Sixers, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then when the Sixers was over, I went to the NFL game. That got to halftime. So then I went to the college game. And I would say both quarterbacks looked good last night, Pickett and Howell. But keep in mind, they're playing each other's defenses who are terrible.
Yeah.
I mean, if I watch the game,
Pickett is ranked is because of Kenny Pickett.
He's very good. I said, hey, both these guys are pretty good. I thought Hal played well last night. He had a throw last night in the red zone. I said, man, this guy, nice throw. But I wasn't like, I got to draft one of these guys in the first round. The point that I'm making, is you said Hurts. He's not your first, second, third problem. Hurts. Would you like to have Tom Brady, Aaron Rodgers, somebody like? Sure, those guys don't exist. You have a guy that you can win with, and you can really win with that guy if you have a better defense. This defense has cost them 4 games this year because they're just so bad.
Yeah, exactly. I kind of look at this way. Everybody wants to compare the apples oranges thing with Jalen Hurts and Carson Wentz. They're 2 different players. And Jalen Hurts provides stuff. Carson Wentz does it just like Carson Wentz provides stuff. Jalen Hurts. Well, we all want the big arm quarterback. Well, guess what? My favorite big arm quarterback in the league is Patrick Mahomes, and he is not doing anything this year. Like, he's not being Patrick Mahomes. He's still really good, and he can get things turned around. But can we give this guy more than half a year before we ditch him? I mean, these guys do get better. Like, I think right now.
Well, you remember back in the day, a wide receiver, it wasn't until his third year. It was like, oh, okay, the third-year receivers. Who's good? Now, if you're not, the problem is you got Justin Jefferson coming right into the league, blasting off. You've got rookie Jamar Chase is coming in. He's having a tremendous year. Rookie receivers today are coming right into the league performing. 15 years ago, that wasn't the case. Rookie receivers, that was a position where you just didn't come into the league and thrive right away.
Yeah, and look how bad Mike Quick was year one, or how Carmichael was year 1 and 2. But yeah, you're right. I mean, look, Devonta Smith, people are saying, like, he's not having the year we expect. I'm like, what are you talking about? He's having a great year. He's compared to I mean, look, he's the only guy right now. Can you imagine how bad this team would be without Devonta Smith?
He's getting better every week. I was a little disappointed with the drops that he had because he was billed as a guy who never drops, and then he had some drops.
They all drop passes.
Sure, but he was dropping some elementary passes.
So is Jamar Chase. I mean,
no. Well, Chase was talking about the football, not having the stripe. I mean, all that thing. Guess what? Smith is not a problem. He's been fine. This team certainly has issues. This week against Denver, you said you like Philly. It sounds like.
Yeah, I am going with the Eagles. I picked them 26-20. That's what I'm going with, Mike.
Pete Thompson says, great job on hitting that one on the nose last week.
Tell Pete thanks. But yeah, this is how I'm looking at it. Denver's got a lot of injuries. I think the pass rush is better. I think the defense improves. And I think Jalen Hurts makes 1 or 2 throws he needs to make. And I think they continue running the ball.
All right, Jeff Kerr, CBS Sports, will be back on Monday to look back at Week 10 in the NFL, Eagles and Broncos, and everything else that's happening right here on the Sports Bash Live on 97.3. Follow him on Twitter at Jeff Kerr, CBS. All right, Jeff, enjoy the weekend, man.
Yeah, it sounds great, Mike. Heading up to Penn State tomorrow, doing the Eagles game Sunday. It's going to be fun.
Very busy weekend. Jeff Kerr, all right, man. Man, he's always Penn State here, Sixers last night, Eagles over the weekend. Got a lot going on, and, of course, so do we. Finishing up the show, Josh has game night. Kevin Durso at 6:20. Who's the athlete of the week? Listen at 6:50 tonight. Flyers hockey tonight on 97.3 ESPN. Tomorrow, Michigan, Penn State, Sixers, Pacers, Notre Dame, Virginia. We got that for you. Plus Eagles, Denver, Kansas City, Vegas on Sunday right here on the Sports Bash. All right, we're getting ready to wrap up the Friday show. Happy Hour Friday. Give you my pick for the game real quick. I got Philadelphia winning the game, actually. I'm going to go Eagles win 28-25. Weird game. 28-25.
So
You're not my game balls. What do you got?
So like some field goals and some
Missed
missed extra points.
Missed 2-point conversions, that kind of stuff.
Gotcha.
28-25. Field goal wins it. Late in the game, they get the field goal to win it. I'm going game balls this week. I'm going to go on the offensive side of the ball. I'm going D. Smith again. Last week I said touchdown, long touchdown from D. Smith. He got a 28-yard touchdown. And on the defensive side of the ball, I'm going to go big game Slay. Has a big game.
All right. By the way, our
If he
9-9
plays.
battle qualifiers from the 455. Steve from North Cape May.
Steve-O.
Corey from Ocean View.
All right, Corey.
And Janet from Millville.
Janet, good to see all three of you. We'll see you on November 24th at Vagabond Kitchen and Tap House in Egg Harbor Township. Don't forget, you must be present to win that day. Next week, we have more chances for you to qualify 2 times each day right here on the Sports Bash. Coming up next, game night. Josh has you till 7. That's when the Flyers take on the Carolina Hurricane. Kevin Durso, our Flyers insider, previews the action tonight at 6:20. Have a great rest of your weekend, everybody. I'm Mike Gill. Follow me at Mike Gill Show on Twitter. I'll be back on Monday. Have a great weekend.